Chapter 2946. Seeing Fu Weibai's expression, Du Xiaofu felt like laughing. Back in the divine martial world, Fu Weibai was extremely fearful of Eastern deity, and she was constantly chasing after him. Fu Weibai could only run all over the place to avoid her. Du Xiaofu also did not expect that after thousands of years, the two of them still had not achieved anything. But combining the past and the current situation, it could be concluded that Fu Weibai would never be able to escape from Eastern deities' demonic clutches. Thinking up to here, Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaojing, Du Xiaoyao, and the others couldn't help but laugh. They wanted to grin, but in front of the two of them, they could only restrain themselves. Big brother, you and sister-in-law Qingqing have not seen each other for many years. You must have a lot to talk about. Why don't we find a place to catch up? At this time, Du Xiaojing blinked her beautiful eyes. She first looked at Du Xiaofu, then glanced at Dongli Qingqing and said. He. Little girl Xiaojing is sensible. Well said. Let's go first and not disturb your big brother and sister-in-law's mood. Du Xiaoyao took over the conversation, a meaningful smile hung on the corner of her mouth as she said playfully. These words caused Dongli Qingqing's pretty face to turn red. She lowered her head slightly and didn't dare to answer. You too, that's enough. You even dare to tease your big brother and sister-in-law. Are you looking for a beating? Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes and glared fiercely at Du Xiaojing and Du Xiaoyao. Then, he pulled Dongli Qingqing's hand, held his head high, and left with her. Watching the two of them leave, the surrounding experts all revealed deep smiles. Immediately after, millions of experts gathered in the celestial demon battlefield. They divided themselves into different groups and began to converse with each other. Among them, those who were injured in the 18 layers of hell went into secluded cultivation to recover. Under the instructions of the meditative forgetfulness experts, there were also people who were constantly paying attention to the situation outside the divine demon battlefield. They were paying attention to the movements of the 7 demon generals and the entire demon race. At this time, Du Xiaofu had found a remote place in the divine demon battlefield with Dongli Qingqing. Then, he used his own methods and the power of the 4 primordial laws to slightly modify the surroundings. This place of death became no different from the outside, forming an independent space that was like a real world. After not seeing each other for thousands of years, Du Xiaofu also missed Dongli Qingqing. He wanted to be alone with her and spend some quiet time together. With Du Xiaofu's current strength, it wasn't too difficult for him to isolate himself from the outside world. Only existences like Xiaolong, Di Batian, and Yang Guo could spy on him as much as they wanted. However, Du Xiaofu knew that experts like them wouldn't do something so boring. When I was in the 3,000 boundless worlds, I heard a lot about you. In the independent space, Dongli Qingqing stood in front of Du Xiaofu. She looked at the purple-robed young man in front of her with a pair of watery eyes filled with endless affection. She softly said, all these years, you roamed the 33 heavens by yourself, but I wasn't able to be by your side. As she spoke, the rims of her eyes reddened. Clearly, she knew about Du Xiaofu's many experiences over the years. She could not help but feel sorry for him. Silly girl, I'm your man. What is this? Du Xiaofu smiled and reached out to pull Dongli Qingqing into his arms. But in his heart, Du Xiaofu was filled with endless joy. As a man, he naturally wanted to receive endless care from his woman. In the past, during the terrifying battles, there were times when he wished that Yang Shuang, Dongli Qingqing, Sima Muhan, and the others could be by his side. However, Du Xiaofu knew very well that he could not ensure the safety of his women. Rather than putting his true love in danger, it was better for him to endure more hardships alone and roam the world alone. Now that he heard Dongli Qingqing's tender words, Du Xiaofu felt that all his efforts were worth it. The stronger he was, the more he could protect the people he wanted to protect. Over the past thousands of years, whether it was in Shenwu world or the 33 heavens, wasn't it all to seek greater breakthroughs and reach a higher realm so that he could reunite with his loved ones? As long as the people he cared about also cared about him, so what if he had to endure more hardships? At this moment, Du Xiaofu's heart was filled with tenderness because of Dongli Qingqing's words. He held her waist with one hand and her back with the other, as if he wanted to squeeze the woman next to him into his body. This time, I can finally fight side by side with you. Dongli Qingqing rested her chin on Du Xiaofu's shoulder and said softly. A warm and fragrant breath drifted out from between her vermilion lips and gushed towards Du Xiaofu's neck. He sniffed fiercely, smelling the unique fragrance of the woman's hair in his arms. He only felt his mind clear and relaxed, and all the pressure of the past disappeared in an instant. Okay, let's fight side by side. Du Xiaofu nodded and continued, but as long as I'm here, I won't let anything happen to you, unless thinking of the horror of the demon race, Du Xiaofu couldn't help but secretly swear that he will protect his loved ones. Even if the world was turned upside down and all living beings in the world perished, he would protect his loved ones until the very last moment of his life. However, before he could finish, Dongli Qingqing interrupted him. No. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Dongli Qingqing's delicate body trembled and she struggled out of his embrace. She raised a delicate hand and pressed it against his lips, not allowing him to continue. Her clear eyes were like water ripples, full of tenderness. She carefully looked at the man in front of her as if she was looking at her most beloved thing. Qingqing, Du Xiaofu called out softly, wanting to say something. But in the next moment, two soft things blocked his lips, making him unable to say anything. Du Xiaofu's body trembled slightly. He felt a sweet taste in his mouth, like the smell of spring grass, making him feel comfortable. He suddenly felt like he was wrapped in a gentle breeze and began to carefully taste this unique sweetness. In an independent space, the two hugged each other, their lips touching, each savoring the charm of the other. Time slowly passed. Unknowingly, a warm thing broke Du Xiaofu's lips and quietly slid into his mouth. Like a playful little snake, it hooked his tongue. Du Xiaofu's body suddenly became restless and began to respond passionately. That pair of firm and powerful palms also began to move, gently caressing the exquisite and delicate body, moving along the moving arc gradually, his hands climbed to a certain peak. The soft touch from his palms was too wonderful for words. Oh, Dongli Qingqing's mouth let out a light gasp, but she did not make any resistance. Instead, she pressed her hands on Du Xiaofu's back and hugged him even tighter. Du Xiaofu could feel that Dongli Qingqing's body was a little hot, and her face was flushed red, as if she had drunk wine. In the following time, the situation between the two became more and more intense. Du Xiaofu's powerful palms kept moving, sometimes up, sometimes down, attacking the city. Wherever it passed, it caused a slight tremor. At the same time, Dongli Qingqing was also responding passionately, allowing the man in front of her to do whatever he wanted. With the passage of time, the thread slowly faded away, revealing an even more moving scene. In this independent space, it was as if spring had just arrived, tender and beautiful. Under Du Xiaofu's arrangement, everything here was under his control. The surroundings were surrounded by green mountains, green water flowing, jade flowers blooming, and green grass covering the ground. Under the pleasant spring scenery, a jade body was half hidden in the grass, quietly lying there. Dongli Qingqing opened her eyes and looked up. Between her vermilion lips, a delicate fragrance was exhaled. She raised an arm, stretched out 5 fingers that were as white as scallion roots, and gently stroked her hair. Her neck had unknowingly turned crimson, and where the 2 mountains were, it also appeared to be sparkling and translucent. 2 pink jade pearls stood upright, attracting people's yearning. Qingqing, Du Xiaofu was already at daggers drawn, how could he endure it? He gently stroked the jade feet beside his feet, climbed up, and then separated them. The most profound and mysterious place was revealed in front of him. Under the cover of a tuft of green velvet, it released an alluring aura. Du Xiaofu only felt a burst of dryness in his mouth and tongue. He did not want to waste any more time, so he directly raised his spear and jumped on the horse, launching an attack. Accompanied by a carefree cry from the two at the same time, the battle immediately began. The last time he left Shenwu was stunned. Many years had passed, and now Du Xiaofu was like a hungry wolf, his eyes emitting red light. Now that the battle had begun, it was time for them to clash and go on a wanton expedition. As the battle became more and more intense, a stormy sea appeared on the jade body below, undulating and swaying. The weapons were clashing, the battle song was playing, and hot sweat was pouring down. Where the weapons clashed, water gurgled, like a river, like a vast ocean, flowing slowly. Du Xiaofu entered and exited hundreds of times, but did not show any signs of fatigue. Instead, the more he fought, the braver he became, and his spirit was high. He raised his sharp sword forcefully, and his attack was peerless. However, under such circumstances, Dongli Qingqing could not help but tighten her defense, causing Du Xiaofu's intention to advance and retreat to greatly increase the resistance. The two of them did not give in just like that. They both displayed all their strength, clashing with each other, and the flames of war filled the sky. However, he could hear the sounds of intense collisions, like a high-spirited tune, moving the hearts of everyone. Such a battle was really back and forth, full of color and brilliance. After an unknown period of time, the battle finally reached its most intense point. Immediately, one could hear waves of uncontrollable roars from the two of them at the same time. The two of them, who were in the midst of an intense battle, tightened their bodies. Then, in the sudden violent tremor, Du Xiaofu finally moved his sword fiercely, stirring up waves of scorching sword light, brazenly killing into the deep place. At the same time, a violent wave surged, and Du Xiaofu's long spear was drowned in it. A warm feeling wrapped around the two of them, making them feel incomparably comfortable. In the blink of an eye, the terrifying battle suddenly came to an end, and a rare peace appeared on the battlefield. Du Xiaofu and Dongli Qingqing, after experiencing the most beautiful battle in the world, were both panting. They gave each other their warmest things, and obtained endless satisfaction. It still hurts a little. Dongli Qingqing hugged Du Xiaofu's body tightly, and said softly. Although it was not the first time she had been with Du Xiaofu, she still felt some pain at this time. Previously, because she was too engrossed, she did not feel this way, but now that everything had calmed down, the pain suddenly surged. Then I'll be gentler next time. Du Xiaofu giggled as she spoke, as such. Back then, when he was still weak, because of an accident, he had experienced his first time with Dongli Qingqing in Su Muxin. But that time, no one had tasted what they should have, and only passed it in a muddle-headed state. Now, after thousands of years, he really had a good taste. Obviously, Dongli Qingqing's feeling was even deeper. She blushed, and her eyes opened and closed, revealing extreme love for the man beside her. After the battle, the two of them hugged each other, and talked to each other, not caring about the gradual passage of time. If only I could give birth to a child for you this time. Suddenly, Dongli Qingqing stroked her lower abdomen and muttered. She was a little envious of Ouyang Shuang, who had given birth to a little Qilin, but Dongli Qingqing also knew that it was an accident. After so many years, after her first intimate contact with Du Xiaofu, as her understanding with him deepened day by day, Dongli Qingqing naturally wanted to bear fruit with him. Even if Du Xiaofu had to continue fighting in the outside world in the future, at the very least, she could be a little wife, stay at home and teach her children, and give her a spiritual sustenance. However, after hearing Dongli Qingqing's words, Du Xiaofu suddenly laughed, and a wretched look appeared in his eyes. He licked his lips. He had just eaten, but at this moment, he was like a hungry wolf, with an ominous glint in his eyes. Before Dongli Qingqing could react, she blinked and asked, "What are you laughing at? Isn't it easy to give birth to a child? I'll work harder." Du Xiaofu said, and the strange smile on his face made Dongli Qingqing feel as if she could hear the sound of evil water flowing in his stomach. Hey! Wishful thinking. She couldn't help but spit, and her face became redder again. However, just as Dongli Qingqing finished her sentence, Du Xiaofu immediately moved closer, and was about to start the battle again. What are you doing? Dongli Qingqing was a little flustered, and looked like she was at a loss. Didn't you want to give birth to a child for me? As a father, if I don't put in more effort, how would he be willing to appear so easily? As Du Xiaofu spoke, he pressed Dongli Qingqing onto the grass again, and said, if that's the case, then I can only work harder. Only by sowing more, can I reap more. I've just finished, and you, woo. Dongli Qingqing used all her strength to push Du Xiaofu away. She wanted to push this shameless guy away, but very quickly, her lips were blocked. Under Du Xiaofu's fierce attacks, Dongli Qingqing once again fell into the trap, and she endured the endless attacks of sword light and saber light. In this independent space, a new round of battle began, and it was fierce and spectacular. At the same time, in the 18 layers of hell, countless demon experts moved. Under the lead of the two great demon attendants, Dongli Qihuang and Qin Yan, a large number of meditative, immortal, truth-severing, and seizing gods experts of the demon race gathered together and moved out of the 18 layers of hell together. These people had been summoned long ago, and they only wanted to follow the footsteps of the dragon god and the others, and kill their way into the 33 heavens. Even if they didn't start the final battle for the time being, they would at least block the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 greater worlds outside the 18 layers of hell, and not let them take a step forward. They would wait for the demon ancestor to recover to his peak, and then they would carry out the final slaughter. In terms of speed, the countless demon experts couldn't compare to Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Ongua, and the 7 great demon generals. Furthermore, as they passed through each layer of hell, they had to rely on the meditative realm experts to protect the deity-seizing realm, truth-severing realm, and immortal realm experts. As a result, their speed was greatly reduced. Of course, since they were moving at full speed and had no obstacles along the way, Dongli Qihuang and the others weren't slow at all. They quickly passed through the barriers of each layer of hell, and by now, they had already broken through the 8th layer of hell and arrived at the 7th. After a while, they would definitely meet up with the 7 great demon generals again. Most importantly, after the demon ancestor opened the 18 layers of hell, 2 more demon generals walked out. The 2 of them had already taken a step forward, and by now, they should be almost out of the demon world. At the same time, in the boundless starry sky outside the 18 layers of hell, the 7 great demon generals had already launched many attacks together, but they couldn't break through Lu Xiaoyou's modified array. The 7 experts were very unwilling to give up, and they didn't want to give up just like that. As for the Chaos Origin, they had already listed it as a must-have item. They had to get it in their hands to recover their strength. For this, the 7 great demon generals racked their brains, but it was still very difficult to find the weakness of this array. We can't go on like this. The 7 of us can't break this array by force. Lu Xiaoyou's means are really terrifying. The blood god demon general said in a deep voice with gloomy eyes. It's because our strength has been greatly reduced. Otherwise, this array wouldn't be a problem for us. The Ming Luo demon general said with a hint of viciousness. They had spent a lot of time here, but the people of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 sectors didn't come out to stop them. It seemed that they were very confident in Lu Xiaoyu and this array. It was also because of this that the 7 great demon generals felt more and more jealous. That Lu Xiaoyu was merely a post-celestial life form, yet he was actually able to stop the 7 of them. This was something that was truly hard to accept. Chapter 2947. In fact, the 7 demon generals were helpless. After countless years of being sealed, they were no longer at their peak. Moreover, Lu Xiaoyou's formation was built on the foundation of Pangu's seal. It was extremely terrifying and could not be easily broken. However, if the 7 demon generals were at their peak, they might have a chance to break through all this and obtain the chaos source. But then again, if the demon general's strength had not been greatly reduced, why would they covet the chaos source so much? What was the use of obtaining it? Our people are here. This time, we can try again. At this moment, the red flame demon general turned his head and looked in the direction of the entrance of the 18 levels of hell. At the black hole in the starry sky, there was a mighty force flowing and billowing demon chi surging out. It was as if 2 peerless evil lords were about to rush out from it. And this kind of aura was all too familiar to the 7 demon generals present. Swoosh swoosh, soon, not long after the red flame demon general's words, 2 figures rushed out from the black hole and quickly landed in front of the 7 demon generals. These 2 people, like the 7 demon generals present, had the extreme characteristics of the demon clan and exuded a ferocious aura. The first person was dressed in a black robe that covered his entire body, but it was not difficult to sense his terrifying cultivation. The second person was surrounded by wisps of dark green energy, which transformed into ghostly claws that danced in the air. These 2 people were the other 2 demon generals of the demon clan. They were called the Fleeing Shadow Demon General and the Shrouding Demon General. In this way, in addition to the Blood God Demon General, Ming Luo Demon General, Desolation Demon General, Red Flame Demon General, Fierce Locust Demon General, Serene Demon General, and the 7th Demon General that appeared in the 18 levels of hell, Luan Su Demon General, there were a total of 9 demon generals. With the 9 of us gathered here, we should be able to break through Lu Xiaoyou's formation. The Fierce Locust Demon General said in a deep voice. Hope was ignited in his heart. He felt that with the combined strength of all 9 demon generals, there was a considerable chance of obtaining the chaos source. Let's give it a try first. If it still doesn't work, then we'll kill our way into the 33 heavens. What was the use of Lu Xiaoyu laying down such a trap? Weren't the people from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds unable to leave this formation? As long as we can get rid of the tens of millions of people there, Lu Xiaoyu will be left alone in the end. Demon General Duo Yu said sinisterly. At the same time, he turned his gaze in the direction of the Fiend God battlefield. With his cultivation, it wasn't difficult for him to find out the general situation there. He knew that nearly 10 million powerhouses from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds were gathered there. In addition, the array that Lu Xiaoyu had set up had some special characteristics. One could only enter, but not leave. The powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds and the Fiend God battle boundary had also stepped into a dead end, unable to leave. As long as the 9 great demon generals led a large number of demon clansmen to charge in and kill, those people would definitely die. For Lu Xiaoyu, he probably wouldn't want to see such an outcome. Let's do it. Find the weak point of this formation. Demon General Hun Mian, who had just arrived, said. Then, the 9 great demon generals didn't delay any longer. All of them moved with all their strength, ready to launch a new round of attacks. These 9 people were all extremely powerful existences from ancient times, second only to Pangu, the demon ancestor, Heavenly Lord Daoyuo, and a few others. If their strength was at the peak, in the current world, they would be able to sweep through the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds without any effort. There was no need for the demon ancestor to do anything. It was enough to crush everything, wipe out billions of lives, and turn the world into a demon's domain. Rumble, in this vast and boundless starry sky, a terrifying explosion rang out. As the terrifying energy leaked out, it turned into a world-destroying storm that swept in all directions. The 9 demon generals joined forces and tried their best to find the weak point of the invisible formation. Under the powerful bombardment, the entire starry sky seemed to be stirred. Huge stars swayed unsteadily, as if they wanted to break away from their original trajectories. At the same time, the invisible formation was greatly affected. The net of light that enveloped everything swayed wildly as if it was about to collapse. Under the full strength of the 9 demon generals, the scene was so terrifying that it shocked everyone. Many experts in the Divine Devil battlefield also noticed this situation, and many of them began to panic. The formation set up by the lords of the 3,000 boundless worlds won't be broken by these 9 demon generals, right? Someone was constantly observing the movements of the demon clan. When he saw 2 more demon generals appear and attack together with the previous 7, he couldn't help but feel uncertain. They were very confident in the lords of the 3,000 boundless worlds, but there were too many demon generals. There were a total of 9 of them, and together, they were a terrifying force. It shouldn't be broken so easily. The means of the lords of the 3,000 boundless worlds are not something we can predict. Next to him, an expert from the 33 heavens said. Although he was very worried, out of his trust in the lords of the 3,000 boundless worlds, he would rather believe that the 9 demon generals would not be able to break his means. That's right. The dragon god has already said that the strength of those demon generals has been greatly reduced, and they are far from their peak. They can't do it. Besides, if the situation is really critical, the dragon god and the others will definitely take action and interfere with the 9 demon generals. They will definitely not watch them break the formation. Soon, another expert pondered for a moment and said such a sentence. When the others heard this, they instantly felt that they were overthinking. Just as this expert said, even if the 9 demon generals really had the ability to break the formation set up by the lords of the 3,000 boundless worlds, the dragon god and the others would not sit by and do nothing. As long as the half-step Tao realm experts took action, they would be able to cut off the demon clan's intentions. Everyone knew that this great array had isolated the demon race's 18 layers of hell from the 33 heavens, forming an independent place. The purpose of this was to prevent the 33 heavens from suffering an unimaginable loss of life and suffering unimaginable damage. Therefore, no matter what, they absolutely could not watch this formation break. After such a short discussion, everyone gradually felt more at ease. However, the huge movement in the starry sky attracted more and more experts to watch through the gates of hell in the Fiend God battlefield. As time continued to pass, everyone became more certain that the Lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds, Lu Xiaoyou's methods were really terrifying. The 9 demon generals exhausted the strength of 9 oxen and 2 tigers, but they were still unable to shake this terrifying formation. In the fierce fluctuations, although the stars were trembling fiercely, they were still firmly moving in their existing trajectories, and under the attacks of the 9 demon generals, terrifying rumbling sounds could be heard. The dense net of light in the surroundings seemed to be blown by a hurricane, swaying unsteadily, but it also did not really collapse. No matter what the 9 demon generals did, they could not really break all of this. Damn Lu Xiaoyu, his methods are so strange. In the end, the 9 demon generals could not help but begin to curse in indignation. But they could not do anything about it. The huge mass of primal chaos source stood in the distance, emitting a tempting light that attracted them. However, this invisible barrier made it difficult for the 9 demon generals to take a step closer, let alone take it in their hands and use it to restore their strength. Different from the 9 demon generals, many experts from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds revealed joyful and knowing smiles at this time. Countless people were watching the movements outside, and seeing that the 9 demon generals were helpless, how could they not be happy? So what if it's the 9 demon generals? Now is not the ancient times. Their strength has been greatly reduced, how can they be compared with the Lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds? That's right. To think that they are so overconfident, wanting to break the formation set up by the Lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds and obtain the mass of primal chaos source. How could something left behind by the great god Pangu be stolen so easily? 9 demon generals, look at their sickly looks, I think it's better to call them the 9 great insect generals. Huh, you're right, the 9 great insect generals. If the Lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds himself came back, these 9 useless chickens and pottery dogs, I'm afraid they would be slapped down. How could they be allowed to jump up and down like this? For a moment, the many experts in the divinity and devil battle territory burst into laughter. They knew in their hearts that with the strength of the 9 demon generals, if they wanted to spy on these words, it would be very easy. Moreover, such harsh mockery would definitely infuriate those 9 people. But in their hearts, they were fearless. They had been immersed in the terrifying shadow of the demon race for so many years. Now that they finally had a place to vent, naturally they would vent well. The worst result would be that the war between the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds and the demon race would break out in advance. At this time, many people were already rubbing their fists and rubbing their palms. They wanted to fight fiercely with the demon race, so how could they be afraid to retreat? Restrain yourselves. If the 9 demon generals are angered at this time and the final battle breaks out, it will be disadvantageous to us. An expert spoke up, indicating for the surrounding people to lower their voices so that the 9 demon generals wouldn't hear them. But as he spoke, the corners of his mouth were curled up as if he was watching a joke, as if he had no intention of restraining himself at all. But hearing such words, everyone looked at each other and smiled, knowing that what he said was very reasonable. After all, if they really fought with the demon race now, the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds would definitely be at a disadvantage. Rather than make a meaningless sacrifice, it was better to wait and see. As long as the Lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds, Lu Xiaoyu, returned early, he would be able to lead many experts to sweep through the 18 layers of hell. But the premise was that before that, the demon ancestor would not recover first. Many experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds gathered in the Fiend God battlefield, but in the following time, they only maintained a sneer and did not mock the 9 demon generals. Not long after, the Dragon God, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Donghua, and Lu Xintong, the 5 half-step carrier of Dao realm experts, appeared again and watched with the others. Du Xiaofu brought Dongli Qingqing to the front of the crowd. So there are 2 demon generals in the 18th layer of hell. If we clash with the demon race now, it won't be easy for us to deal with them. Du Xiaofu's gaze was grave as he projected the power of his Yuan spirit, spying on the evading Shadow Demon General and the Hun Demon General in the boundless starry sky. Back when they were fighting the demon race in the 16th layer of hell, Jiangchen had just opened the door to the 18th layer. Not long after that, they began to retreat. Now that they had left the 18 layers of hell and returned to the Fiend God battlefield, the 2 demon generals followed them out and joined the other 7. This was a terrifying force. If it were just the Dragon God, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Donghua, and Lu Xintong, it would be extremely difficult to deal with them. So long as a single demon general wasn't restrained, the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 sectors would face an unimaginably terrifying end. Therefore, Du Xiaofu couldn't help but feel a heavy weight on his heart. Let's deal with all changes by sticking to the status quo. Let's see what the demon race wants to do. If they want to fight, we naturally can't retreat in the slightest. At the side, Xiaolong took over Du Xiaofu's words and said. Everyone hoped that the time could be dragged on for a while, waiting for Lu Xiaoyu to return. At that time, it would be the best time to fight the demon race. But at the same time, there was a huge risk involved. If the demon ancestor appeared before Lu Xiaoyu, it would be a disaster for the 33 heavens and the 3,000 sectors. No one wanted to see that happen. The other demon race members have also appeared. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the 9 demon generals continuously used their powerful techniques to bombard the terrifying formation in the starry sky. As time continued to pass, many people felt a terrifying commotion coming from the 18 levels of hell. If one observed carefully, one would notice that it was the countless experts of the devil race that were led by the 2 great devil attendants, the Eastern Flame Crimson Phoenix and Chen Yen. Moreover, when the meditative realm and eternal realm experts were added together, their numbers actually reached an enormous amount of 70,000 to 80,000. Such a terrifying army was advancing rapidly through the 18 levels of hell, quickly approaching the first level of hell. Presumably, it wouldn't be long before those people could truly descend. Make all the preparations. As long as the demon race makes a move, we'll have to fight at any time. D. Batian said in a deep voice with a strong sense of solemnity. Hearing his words, many experts in the divinity and infernal battle territory began to tense up. Everyone realized that perhaps a great battle was about to break out. At that time, they wouldn't be able to advance as easily as they had when they entered the 18 levels of hell. Once the demon race decided to go to war, it would be a terrifying battle and slaughter. No living beings would be able to stay out of it. No one said a word, and the divine devil battle mirror fell into an extreme silence. Many experts from the 3,000 great worlds and the 33 heavens were on high alert as they paid close attention to the situation outside. They were only waiting for the two demon attendants to lead the countless demon race members out. Under such circumstances, time passed day by day, but to everyone, it was as if it had happened in the blink of an eye. On this day, a terrifying rumble finally resounded, and the boundless starry sky suddenly shook. Dense pitch-black demon chi surged out from the entrance of the first level of hell. It was mixed with a bloody and ruthless aura, revealing the power of blood and slaughter, causing everyone's eyes to move. After that, an expanse of boundlessly vast dark clouds pressed down, and numerous experts of the demon race were within the dark clouds. Their auras were intertwined together, and the imposing aura they formed was sufficient to shake the heavens and the earth. Even Du Xiaofu felt his soul core tremble when he looked at it with his cultivation. Stand guard at the entrance of the gates of hell. So long as the demon race shows any signs of attacking, then we'll charge out at the first possible moment. Du Xiaofu let out a light sigh of relief, and then he spoke. The others in the surroundings nodded silently to display their understanding. Meanwhile, Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yan had separated themselves from the group of devil experts at the front, and they directly went over to the side of the 9 devil generals. After a simple explanation, the 2 demon attendants understood why the 9 demon generals hadn't attacked the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds and had stayed in the starry sky instead. It turned out that the chaos quintessence left behind by Pangu was actually here. The 9 demon generals were unable to obtain the chaos quintessence even after attacking at the same time. Looks like we're unable to break through Lu Xiaoyou's formation. Dongli Qihuang thought for a moment and came to such a conclusion. Actually, he wanted to obtain the chaos quintessence as well. Just like the 9 demon generals, the 2 demon attendants hadn't recovered their strength, and they were far from being at their peak. If they were able to refine and absorb the chaos quintessence left behind by Pangu, then they would definitely be able to recover their strength swiftly. But obviously, after a long period of hard work by the 9 demon generals, all of this didn't seem to be so wonderful, and continuing to attack would only be in vain. Since it's like that, then let's just go to war with the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds. With the 9 of us here, it doesn't affect the outcome whether we recover our strength or not. That Lu Xiaoyu still hasn't made an appearance, so he's definitely encountered something. If we're able to crush the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds before he returns, then let's see how he cries then. A wisp of a vicious smile appeared on the corners of Chen Yan's mouth as he spoke to the 10 demon attendants in the surroundings. Hadn't Lu Xiaoyu been constantly making arrangements and going against the demon race all these years for the sake of protecting the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds? But now, the demon race occupied an absolute advantage. If they were able to deal with the members of those 2 large worlds before he returned and cause all of Lu Xiaoyou's hard work to come to naught, then Lu Xiaoyou's expression would definitely be extremely brilliant when he saw that. Chapter 2948. When they thought up to here, Dongli Qihuang, Chen Yan, and the 9 demon generals revealed gloomy smiles. Almost all the powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds are gathered here. Let's kill them all here and save us a lot of effort. The desolate fiend demon general swung the giant axe in his hand, and the power of the great Tao shot out, causing terrifying ripples to appear in the surrounding space. He glanced in the direction of the divine demon battlefield, and his body exuded a bloodthirsty aura. After dealing with these creatures, when the demon ancestor returns to deal with Lu Xiaoyu in the future, that ball of primal chaos source will belong to us. The blood god demon general's body was flowing with blood, and he looked very terrifying. He revealed a mouthful of white teeth, making him look even more terrifying. After dealing with the powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds, conquering those two worlds in the future would be a smooth journey, and they would not encounter any effective resistance. At that time, as long as the demon ancestor dealt with Lu Xiaoyu, everything would be under their control. Although the formation in the starry sky was terrifying, it would not be of much use in the hands of the demon ancestor at his peak. As long as the demon ancestor took action and destroyed it, that ball of primal chaos source would definitely belong to the 9 demon generals and the others. At such a critical moment, Lu Xiaoyu actually disappeared. Keek. Among the demon generals, Luan Su's body was erratic, and he looked very ethereal, as if he was in another space and time, unfathomable. He said coldly, "Since that's the case, we have to take advantage of this opportunity and turn the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds into empty shells before he returns." Keek. Hearing Luan Su's words, the other 8 demon generals and 2 demon attendants sneered at the same time. If Lu Xiaoyu had appeared earlier, the demon race would have had the biggest headache. Originally, the people of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds had already killed their way to the 16th layer of hell. Once Lu Xiaoyu joined them, it was likely that he would directly rush to the 18th layer of hell and interfere with Lord Devil Ancestor's recovery. However, Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yan had never imagined that the experts of those 2 large worlds would actually retreat for no rhyme or reason, and they'd even walked all the way back here. For the demon race, without Lu Xiaoyu taking action, this was a rare opportunity to quickly exterminate the people of the 33 heavens and 3,000 boundless worlds. At the same time, Lord Demon Ancestor could recover his strength to his heart's content without any interference from the outside world. To the demon race, this was the most desirable thing. What are you waiting for? Gather everyone and start the slaughter. Demon General Duo Yu snorted, his entire body emitting a cold light as he spoke. My axe is ready to reap lives and drink blood. The desolate fiend demon general weighed the blood fiend axe in his hand as a strong murderous aura emanated from his body. How could the 9 demon generals delay any longer? In an instant, they all headed in the direction of the fiend god battle domain. Layers of terrifying demonic chi surged from the bodies of the 9 of them. It was like turbid waves that surged into the sky with great momentum. At the same time, Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yan, the 2 demon attendants, moved as well. The 2 of them quickly went to the place where the demon race's army was gathered and issued a new order. In just an instant, countless members of the demon race began to move. The huge black cloud formed by endless demon chi began to rapidly advance towards the fiend god battle domain. The 9 demon generals, 2 demon generals, and countless members of the demon race no longer paid attention to the terrifying formation in the surrounding starry sky, nor did they think about seizing the chaos source left behind by great god Pangu. Everyone's goal was very similar, and that was to kill their way into the fiend god battle domain and crush the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. The demon race is finally going to make a move. In the fiend god battle domain, the expressions of the experts weren't too good. Although they were well prepared, the bitter battle that they were about to face was absolutely unimaginable. What's there to be afraid of? If they want to fight, then let's fight. At most, we'll die. If the demon race wants to invade our 33 heavens, they'll have to step over our corpses first. Let's fight. There's no coward in our 3,000 boundless worlds. Even if we die, we'll let the demon race have a good taste. Demon race, come. Today, we'll fight to the death. If the people of the 33 heavens and 3,000 boundless worlds take a step back, they're all cowards. Many powerhouses of the 33 heavens and 3,000 boundless worlds roared out loud. Their fighting spirit soared to the skies, soaring to the skies. Since many years ago, everyone had already known that the demon race was about to make a comeback. Moreover, at that time, it had caused endless panic in the 33 heavens, causing many living beings to be in a constant state of panic. There were many legends passed down from ancient times, causing fear in people's hearts. The strength and terror of the demon race was like a dark cloud hanging over the heads of all the people of the 33 heavens, making it difficult for them to escape. However, as time passed, everything began to proceed in an orderly manner. The lords of the 3,000 great worlds, Du Xiaofu, and the others continued to work hard for the demon race, causing many living beings to gradually settle down. By now, the experts had already made sufficient mental preparations. Since the battle with the demon race was unavoidable, they would fight to their heart's content. As long as they could protect the entirety of the 33 heavens, no matter how many sacrifices they had to make, they wouldn't hesitate. Using their own lives in exchange for the stability of their families, races, and sects, this was not a loss at all. Even if they died in battle, they wouldn't be able to change the final result. At the very least, they would die a worthy death. Let's go. Meet the demon race. At this time, the dragon god, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixien, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong took the lead, directly flying out of the fiend god battlefield and into the boundless starry sky. Du Xiaofu, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, and the other experts followed closely behind, each of them exuding a strong and fierce aura. Kill. Large amounts of undying beings and truth-severing realm elites also moved. There were creatures of all races, all of them surging with a heaven-overflowing aura, intertwining together. It was as if they were carrying a terrifying great world as they moved. When these experts arrived in the boundless starry sky, the terrifying energy burst out, causing a large area of the void to turn into chaos, the scene incomparably terrifying. The dragon god, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixien, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong, the 5 half-step Tao-raising realm experts, took the lead, directly charging towards the 9 demon generals. Their bodies carried an unconcealable domineering aura, but at the same time, their faces were incomparably solemn. The 9 demon generals were the strongest existence of the demon race, and they were enough to pose the most terrifying threat to the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. Facing the 9 demon generals, Xiaolong felt that holding back 4 of them was already his limit. If the other 5 demon generals fought against Di Batian's group of 4, they would probably have an overwhelming advantage. After all, they were far from recovering from their injuries at this time. As for the immortal and true severing realm experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds added together, they did not fear the demon race in the slightest. But if the 9 demon generals did not fight with Xiaolong and the others, even if only one of them charged into the crowd of the 2 worlds, it would cause unimaginable damage. Sure enough, when Xiaolong and the others were charging forward, the 9 great demon generals had already moved. What made everyone's heart sink was that the Blood God Archdevil General, Ming Luo Archdevil General, and Desolate Fiend Archdevil General charged towards Xiaolong, whereas the Crimson Flame Archdevil General, Fierce Locust Archdevil General, Yu Duo Archdevil General, and Luan Su Archdevil General charged towards Di Batian, Donghuang Taixien, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong respectively. Lastly, the evading Shadow Demon General and Hun Mian Demon General charged in another direction, where Du Xiaofu, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Long Ke, and the other meditative experts were. The 9 demon generals' intentions were very clear. They did not intend to fight to the death with Long Xian, Di Batian, and the other 4. Their thoughts were the same as Xiaolong and the others, and they all wanted to hold back the strongest experts of the other side. However, to the demon race, they only needed 7 demon generals to make a move, and Long Xian and the others would not be distracted. Once the remaining two demon generals charged into the group of meditative experts, it would be a one-sided slaughter. However, in the face of such a situation, no one had a better way to deal with it. Du Xiaofu and the others could only brace themselves and charge forward. In an instant, 100 meditative experts gathered together and formed a formation with Du Xiaofu as the center. Following that, Du Xiaofu used his 8 trigrams technique to gather the strength of the 100 experts and turned it into his own strength. He was prepared to resist the attack of the two demon generals. Keek. Die, Du Xiaofu. The evading shadow demon general laughed coldly, and it contained a strong murderous intent. He and the Hun Mian demon general charged towards Du Xiaofu from the left and right respectively. The two demon generals' lips curled into a sinister smile as they stared at the group of experts in front of them like the Grim Reaper. Lu Xiaoyou's children, wife, and relatives are all here. I'm sure he'll be heartbroken after killing all of you. Keek. The Hun Mian demon general spoke gloomily. His voice was indescribably terrifying. A terrifying and ferocious aura erupted from the two demon generals. Most of the people in front of them had a close and inviolable relationship with Lu Xiaoyu. If they were to kill all of them here, it would be a huge blow to him. Kill. Du Xiaofu's eyes were gloomy. He did not respond to the two demon generals. Instead, he roared and charged forward with a huge 8 trigrams diagram. The purple-gold heavenly tower in his hand surged wildly as it drew a sword ray that seemed to penetrate the heavens and the earth. At the same time, he immediately retreated after striking out with his attack. The moment his body flashed, a blood-red light swept across the void. It was as though it could split the heavens and the earth. It was extremely terrifying. This was the Hun Mian demon general's attack. It was extremely terrifying. If Du Xiaofu had not dodged it quickly, his 8 trigrams diagram would have collapsed in an instant. Rumble, almost at the same time, Du Xiaofu's sword ray was blasted away. It turned into powder in the fleeing shadow demon general's hand. The broken energy danced in the air and shone brightly. Do you think you can escape? The Hun Mian demon general snorted when he saw Du Xiaofu retreating. He charged forward again and said coldly. He and the fleeing shadow demon general moved together. They split into 2 different directions and charged toward Du Xiaofu. In their eyes, no matter how powerful this kid was, he would not be able to stop them. As long as they closed in on him and surrounded him, his life and death would be in their hands. Martial Uncle Du, don't fight them head-on. Lu Jingyun transmitted his voice to Du Xiaofu from within the 8 trigrams diagram. Du Xiaofu nodded when he heard this. That was his plan. The strength of the two demon generals was extraordinary. It was not something that could be dealt with by the combined strength of these people. Instead of using all his strength to fight, it was better to use a roundabout method and go around in circles with the two demon generals. After making up his mind, Du Xiaofu naturally would not do anything stupid. What a joke, he already had experience. If he were to deal with 2 demon generals by himself, it would be tantamount to courting death. Therefore, he continued to unleash his attacks. At the same time, his figure rapidly changed positions. With each flash, he constantly changed his position, escaping the pursuit of the 2 demon generals. Why are you resisting so stubbornly? Everything you're doing is futile. You can escape for a while, but you can't escape forever. In the end, you can't avoid dying at our hands. The fleeing shadow demon general said in a sinister tone. The words of the 2 demon generals were incomparably cold. Their fierce attacks descended one after another, causing the void to tremble and the universe to overturn. They had all used their most powerful techniques, completely suppressing Du Xiaofu. The purple-robed youth borrowed the power of over 100 meditative experts, but he was still unable to completely escape their attacks. He would be hit in one strike and suffer heavy injuries. Roar! In the end, Du Xiaofu used the cyan spirit armor, shuttling back and forth amidst the terrifying attacks that filled the sky, dodging the attacks of the two demon generals time and time again. As time passed, the injuries on his body increased. Even if he did not fight the two demon generals head-on, he was still unable to dodge all of their attacks. In the midst of this, the fleeing Shadow Demon General and the Hun Mian Demon General carried a sinister smile as they continuously surrounded Du Xiaofu and crazily attacked him. However, as Du Xiaofu deliberately dodged, they did not cause any real damage to Du Xiaofu and the hundreds of meditative experts. "If I can't kill you, then I'll go deal with the others first." Suddenly, the fleeing Shadow Demon General, who was chasing Du Xiaofu, turned his eyes, stopped dodging abruptly in the void, and said softly. His gaze turned to other directions, where a large number of experts from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 sectors were fighting with the demon clan. His intention was very clear. He wanted to force Du Xiaofu to fight. If Du Xiaofu continued to dodge, he would attack the other experts. "All right. I'll handle this brat by myself." On the side, the Hun Mian Demon General nodded lightly and said. As he spoke, he also looked at Du Xiaofu, wanting to see how he would deal with it. "This is bad." Du Xiaofu frowned. He did not know what to do. The two demon generals' actions were to force him into a dead end, but there was nothing he could do. After a moment of hesitation, he saw that the fleeing Shadow Demon General had already turned around and attacked in another direction. With a sudden wave of his arm, a dim light flashed. All the light around him dimmed, as if it had swallowed all the light in the world. This dim light continued to shrink, as if a curtain of the sky was pressing down, instantly enveloping dozens of meditated powerhouses of the 33 heavens. "I'll fight you." Du Xiaofu was anxious. At this time, he did not dare to think anymore. He directly moved, wanting to stop the fleeing Shadow Demon General. He was well aware that if he allowed the evading Shadow Demon General to do as he pleased, it would inevitably cause a terrifying amount of casualties. A large number of meditative forgetfulness powerhouses would die. To the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds, this was an unbearable burden. "Boy, do you think I don't exist?" The Hun Mian Demon General coldly snorted. A thick, pitch-black devil chi rolled out from his body and turned into tentacles that wrapped around Du Xiaofu like vines. In an instant, they stopped Du Xiaofu. If a demon general were to take action, Du Xiaofu himself wouldn't be able to resist, much less break through this line of defense and assist the 33 heavens meditative forgetfulness powerhouses. He was anxious, and so were Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, and the others in the distance. However, at this time, no one could free themselves to help. Everyone's hearts were heavy as they watched the fleeing Shadow Demon General's dark light descend with shocked gazes. In just an instant, the dozens of meditated powerhouses of the 33 heavens who were surrounded by the dim light let out miserable howls. Obviously, they were enduring great pain and unbearable pain. Even if this Tao-carrying realm expert was far from the peak, it was still easy for him to suppress a group of meditated powerhouses with ease. "Bastard!" In the distance, Xiaolong cursed, but there was nothing he could do. Like everyone else, he knew that it was impossible for him to rescue them in time. Besides, even if he could do it, as long as he ignored his opponents, these opponents would definitely imitate the fleeing Shadow Demon General's actions and attack other powerhouses. On the other hand, he and the others would be trapped in endless back and forth, exhausted from running for their lives, and the final outcome was obvious. At this time, all the powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 major worlds who saw this scene felt despair. They watched helplessly as the dozens of figures were swallowed up and let out miserable shrieks, and the life aura emitted by the dim light gradually began to weaken. Du Xiaofu, Lu Jingyun, and the other powerhouses felt extreme pain in their hearts, but they could only sigh helplessly. At this moment, they felt a deep sense of powerlessness. The devil race had too many devil generals, and even if they could barely count Du Xiaofu, it was impossible to restrain them. At the same time, Dongli Chi Huang, Chen Yan, and the other two devil attendants revealed ghastly smiles. They were the most carefree in their hearts, and many of them had cast their gazes towards the dim light released by the fleeing shadow demon general, waiting quietly for the result. Chapter 29-49. Many devils wanted to take a good look, to see how those meditative realm experts died tragically at the hands of the evading shadow devil generals. The other powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds felt despair. They couldn't help. For Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Yangguo, Lu Xintong, Du Xiaofu, Lu Jingyun, and the others, this was a huge blow. Keek, the evading shadow demon general's sneer became even louder. His blood-red eyes narrowed and he increased the strength of his hand. Through his perception, he could clearly see the state of the dozens of meditative boundary experts. Under his suppression, the strength of those people weakened step by step. They were about to collapse. Their bodies burst open, their flesh and blood a mess. Die! The evading shadow demon general roared. His face suddenly became ferocious and his aura exploded. All of this took a long time to describe, but it happened in an instant. From the moment the evading shadow demon general shot out that dim light to the moment his aura surged wildly, it happened in less than a breath's time. Time seemed to freeze. Everyone felt that the fate of the 33 heavens meditative boundary experts was already decided. They couldn't escape death. A demon general's attack didn't allow them to have the slightest bit of luck. However, at this moment, a light snort came from the void. It was extremely sudden. Accompanying the sound was a blood-gold saber light. It seemed to have come from ancient times and brazenly attacked. When this saber light appeared, the surrounding space began to tremble violently. All the stars trembled in resonance. At the same time, the invisible law patterns also changed and became 10,000 times brighter. This saber light rushed down. As soon as it appeared, it killed its way into the battlefield and instantly appeared above the dim light released by the evading shadow demon general. Chi, the saber light flashed like the most domineering weapon in the world. With a sudden slash, it cut a terrifying gap in the dim light, accompanied by the sound of ripping cloth. In the next moment, terrifying demonic chi erupted from the gap in the light curtain. Endless energy spilled out. The scene was extremely shocking. The dozens of meditative boundary experts of the 33 heavens were drowned by the boundless demonic chi and disappeared. On the contrary, after the saber light cut through the dim light curtain, its power didn't weaken at all. It continued to spin and charged straight at the evading shadow demon general. PFF, the evading shadow demon general had just reacted when he saw the saber light coming for him. In a hurry, he had just turned shadow demon general, he was about to dodge the saber light. The shadow demon general. Arg, the evading shadow demon general let out a roar of pain, his face incomparably malevolent. He used all his strength and retreated shadow demon general. In a flash, he appeared far away and looked at the field with panic in his eyes. Another boundary expert. The shadow demon general, the shadow demon general, the shadow demon general to devil battle devil, in an instant, everyone understood what had happened. Obviously, another boundary expert had arrived and used absolute strength to break through the evading shadow demon general's attack. Moreover, he had injured the evading shadow demon general in an instant. From this, it wasn't difficult to see how strong this person was. A demon general didn't even have the strength to resist in his hands. He didn't even have time to escape. Who the hell is it? The eyes of the 9 demon generals all revealed a deep look. At the same time, all of them cast their gazes towards their surroundings, wanting to find the expert hiding in the dark. Could it be that Lu Xiaoyu has returned? Dongli Huang and Chen Yan looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. They really couldn't think of a second person with such terrifying strength. Perhaps in the entire 33 heavens and the 3,000 great thousand worlds, only Lu Xiaoyu could do it. Thinking of this, the two demon attendants couldn't help but tremble slightly. If this was really the case, it would be a great disaster for the demon race. With Lu Xiaoyu taking action, no one would be able to stop him in the absence of the demon ancestor. Even if the 9 demon generals worked together, they were no match for Lu Xiaoyu. The eyes of the two demon attendants trembled. They stared motionlessly at the place where the evading shadow demon general had broken the dark light curtain and turned into a wave of demon qi. Not only them, but Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Nangguo, Lu Xintong, Du Xiaofu, Lu Jingyun, and the others were also like the demon race. The only difference was that the boundary realm experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great thousand worlds all had unconcealable expressions of excitement. Time passed by slowly. Not long after, under everyone's expectant gazes, the demonic qi finally dispersed, revealing the figures of dozens of meditative forgetfulness experts. Under the attack of the evading shadow demon general just now, the aura of these dozens of people had withered by more than half. Their bodies were covered in blood and they were seriously injured. But the miraculous thing was that they were all still alive. None of them had died. And in front of these dozens of people, a man in green clothes was the most eye-catching. This man held a long saber in his hand. The saber's body faintly emitted a blood-red light, and it was also suffused with a golden light. At a glance, one could feel the boundless killing intent. It did not seem like an ordinary item. This saber was called the blood saber. It was the natal item of the master of the 3,000 great thousand worlds. The man stood quietly in the void, but his entire body seemed to be wrapped in boundless light. His aura was so oppressive that no one could look directly at him. It was as if they were not looking at a person, but a god. Boss. Father. Senior brother. Master. Uncle. Cries of surprise came from the boundary realm experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great thousand worlds. Xiaolong, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Du Xiaofu, Long Ke, Long Su, and the others were all overjoyed. There was an indescribable excitement. Xiaoyu, you're finally back. Di Batian was very surprised and blurted out. Hearing these people's cries of surprise, the faces of the 9 demon generals of the demon race were so gloomy that it seemed as if water was about to drip out. From the way the people around them addressed the man in green, it was not difficult to determine that this person was the legendary master of the 3,000 great thousand worlds, Lu Xiaoyu. Although the 9 demon generals had never seen him before, ever since they broke through the seal of the 18 levels of hell, they had heard this name more than once from Dongli Chihuang, Shen Yan, and the others. This Lu Xiaoyu was a legendary figure. He was very terrifying and was not an ordinary person. They had long known that it was because of this Lu Xiaoyu's arrangement that the people of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great thousand worlds dared to kill their way into the 18 levels of hell. Moreover, all of the demon race were very wary of him, including the Lord Demon Ancestor who had not recovered. However, in the fierce battle earlier, Lu Xiaoyu had not appeared, so the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great thousand worlds who had fought their way to the 16th level of hell with great difficulty began to retreat and returned to the Fiend God battlefield. The situation was developing in a direction that was advantageous to the demon race. As long as they had enough time, with the strength of the 9 demon generals, it was absolutely not a problem to wipe out all the beings of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great thousand worlds here. However, who would have thought that Lu Xiaoyu would suddenly return at this time, causing the 9 demon generals to feel extremely dignified. This kid, really came back. In the demon race's lineup, Dongli Chihuang and Shen Yan's lips trembled, and their bodies began to tremble. Boundless fear arose in their hearts. Since the beginning of the divine battle world, Lu Xiaoyu had established a tall and mighty image step by step, deeply implanted in their hearts, making it difficult for them to ignore him. Normally, the two demon servants might have a lot of contempt in their words and compared Lu Xiaoyu to the Lord Demon Ancestor. But now, after all, the Lord Demon Ancestor had not fully recovered, and Lu Xiaoyu had appeared in front of them, so how could they not be afraid? With an aghast expression, Dongli Qihuang and Shen Yan unconsciously took 2 steps back, as if they wanted to stay a little farther away from Lu Xiaoyu, so that they could find a little more security. "Boss, did you succeed?" Xiaolong looked at Lu Xiaoyu with great surprise, and after thinking for a long time, he could not help but ask. Earlier, he had gone to a mysterious place with Lu Xiaoyu. That place was independent of the 33 heavens, the 3,000 great thousand worlds, and the 18 levels of hell, and it hid some extremely great secrets. The creator of the 3,000 great thousand worlds had also gone there. However, after Lu Xiaoyu and Xiaolong entered, they did not find the creator of the 3,000 great thousand worlds. Instead, Lu Xiaoyu began to have a new understanding with the help of some special power. According to Xiaolong's estimation, the last barrier blocking boss Lu Xiaoyu would be broken soon. In the end, the realm that Big Brother would reach would be the highest existence in this world, and that would be the Faceless Realm. Xiaolong imagined that this process would absolutely take a long time, and even 1,000,000 or 10,000,000 years might not be enough. It was also for this reason that he rushed back alone, entered the 18 levels of hell, and brought all the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great thousand worlds away, so that there would not be too many changes to the previous arrangements. But who would have thought that in addition to the 7 demon generals who had chased them out, there would be 2 more demon generals who had walked out of the 18 levels of hell and wanted to kill everyone in the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great thousand worlds. However, Boss had suddenly returned at this time. Could it be that he had already taken that crucial step and stepped into the highest level? Xiaolong was even more excited when he thought of this. If this was the case, it would be too easy to deal with the demon race. "We'll talk about it later." Facing Xiaolong's question, Lu Xiaoyu just smiled and said. Then, he turned his gaze and looked at the 9 demon generals of the demon race. Gradually, Lu Xiaoyu's eyes became extremely cold, like 10,000 feet of ice, and extremely cold. "You demons dare to walk out of the 18 levels of hell without the demon ancestor. Without his protection, how can you little shrimps make such a big splash? Since that's the case, let's start the decisive battle. Before the demon ancestor recovers, it's a good thing to get rid of all his minions first." Lu Xiaoyu said, with a chilling intent, and killing intent bursting out. Step by step, he walked towards the 9 demon generals. As he moved, the aura on Lu Xiaoyu's body grew stronger and stronger. The boundless energy surged wildly, releasing a scorching aura, as if an incomparably terrifying scorching sun had bloomed. It was 1,000,000 times more terrifying than some of the burning stars in the distant starry sky. Seeing him approaching step by step, the 9 demon generals' expressions all became solemn. "Lu Xiaoyu, even if you have a Tao-bearing realm cultivation, how can you treat us 9 demon generals as nothing? If it weren't for the countless years of wear and tear of the seal, with the strength of the 9 of us, killing you would be as easy as flipping our palms." The desolate demon general's brows were tightly knitted together as he shouted arrogantly. However, the giant axe in his hand had already betrayed his true state, showing the extreme fear in his heart. The pressure Lu Xiaoyu gave him was too great, making it difficult for the desolate demon general to calm down. He could only clamor crazily, trying to show the imposing manner of a Tao-bearing realm expert. However, this action had already put him in a weak position. A real man doesn't talk about his past bravery. Moreover, that was countless years ago. You 9 demon generals are very extraordinary. With your Tao-bearing realm cultivation, there are very few people in the world who can compare to you. However, in that era, there were still a large number of Tao-bearing realm experts from the 33 heavens to deal with you. They suppressed you and the demon ancestor's primordial spirit in the 18 levels of hell, making it difficult for you to rise again. Even if you come back now, it's difficult to reproduce the ferocious power of the past. The corners of Lu Xiaoyou's mouth continued to move forward. At the same time, the corners of his mouth rose into a mocking smile as he continued, "The ancient times are no more, and the present is different from the past. Could it be that you still can't see your own ability? If you had the ability, then bring out the strength of the ancient times and fight with me." As he spoke, he had already traveled a long distance, closing the distance between him and the 9 demon generals. During this process, the 9 demon generals also involuntarily retreated slowly. Lu Xiaoyou's words made the 9 of them unable to refute. The 9 demon generals' expressions were incomparably solemn as they looked solemnly at the azure-robed man, using their terrifying auras to suppress him. The strength that Lu Xiaoyu displayed was that of a Tao-bearing realm expert, no different from the 9 demon generals in the ancient times. However, in this era, it was enough to crush the 9 of them until they couldn't breathe. What a pity, we had already killed our way to the 16th level of hell and were only 1 level away from the final 18th level of hell. If Boss had come back earlier, we could have directly attacked the demon ancestor's nest and interrupted his recovery. Looking at the tense situation, Xiaolong could not help but click his tongue and sigh emotionally, his eyes filled with regret. No matter. Anyway, the conditions to truly kill the demon ancestor aren't sufficient yet. Let's just kill our way in again. In my opinion, going through this process again, everything will be perfect. Although Xiaolong's voice was very soft, it was completely heard by Lu Xiaoyu. He opened his mouth lightly and responded like this. After that, Lu Xiaoyou's eyes suddenly darkened, and he did not say any more nonsense. He raised bloodshed in his hand abruptly, and at the same time, the power within his body revolved wildly. Walala, terrifying great Tao origin power shot out wildly, mixed with a large amount of chaos aura, like a long dragon dancing in the air, rushing toward bloodshed in Lu Xiaoyou's hand. Roar roar roar, however, a strange beast roar could be heard drifting out, as if an ancient giant beast had awakened, shaking the world. This was Lu Xiaoyou's great Tao origin power, a Tao that he had walked out on his own. It was completely different from the great Tao power of the various major worlds. At the same time, this great Tao power gave birth to a small amount of chaos origin power, which was originally an ability that only the illusionary realm could possess. Swish, Lu Xiaoyu raised his saber and instantly released a terrifying saber light, slashing directly at the Desolation Fiend Demon General. Seeing such a saber light approaching, the Desolation Fiend Demon General's entire body trembled violently. Without thinking, he swung the bloodshed axe in his hand, carrying billowing demonic aura, brazenly blocking Lu Xiaoyou's attack. However, in the next moment, Bloodshed's saber light descended and easily destroyed the Desolation Fiend Demon General's axe shadow. Then, it slashed the body of the giant axe, splitting it into 2 halves. The Desolation Fiend Demon General blocking in front of Lu Xiaoyu was like a piece of tofu, unable to withstand a single blow. The saber light cut through the terrifying demonic aura, but it did not deplete too much, still brazenly attacking brazenly. Quickly dodge. The Blood God Demon General, Ming Luo Demon General, Fierce Locust Demon General, Crimson Flame Demon General, and the remaining 8 Demon Generals shouted at the same time. They all rushed out and attacked at the same time, all of them charging toward Lu Xiaoyou's saber light. Rumble, waves of terrifying energy surged out, causing Lu Xiaoyou's saber light to pause for a moment. Taking advantage of this short moment, the Desolation Fiend Demon General immediately retreated, but he was still unable to completely dodge the attack. The saber light slashed into his back. A pool of demonic blood drifted past, as if it was raining blood. The Desolation Fiend Demon General's back was sliced from top to bottom. His broad and thick muscles and bones were all slashed open, revealing the 5 internal organs in his chest. It was incomparably terrifying. Go. The other 8 demon generals also suffered a certain degree of impact, and they all spat out a mouthful of blood from their mouths. However, no one dared to delay any longer. They directly dragged the Desolation Fiend demon general's broken body and instantly rushed out, fleeing toward the 18th level of hell. Run! Dongli Chi Huang, Chen Yan, and the rest of the demon race were all stunned when they saw this scene. They were stunned for a very long time before they remembered to flee. One by one, the demon race began to flee in panic. Everyone's goal was the same, and that was to return to the 18th level of hell and seek the protection of the demon ancestor. The demon race was still in an overbearing state just now. I didn't expect that the moment the Lord of the 3,000 Great Worlds returned, they became stray dogs. Since that's the case, let's kill again. Chapter 2950. The demon race was so arrogant before. I didn't expect that the Lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds would return and become a stray dog. Since that's the case, let's kill them again. Seeing a large number of demon race experts fleeing frantically, an expert of the 33 heavens couldn't help but sneer. Looking at the demon race experts fleeing like stray dogs, he felt an indescribable joy in his heart. With the return of the Lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds, the demon race no longer has the capital to be rampant. At this time, the demon ancestor is still recovering. Who in the demon race can stop our attack? Kill! Let these demon race people see what the price of invading our 33 heavens and 3,000 boundless worlds is. The experts of the 33 heavens and 3,000 boundless worlds spoke one after another, each of them carrying an uncontrollable excitement. The return of the Lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds, Lu Xiaoyu, was like a shot of cardiac stimulant for each of them. Everyone believed that under his leadership, they could once again kill their way into the 18 layers of hell and give the demon race a heavy blow. As long as the demon ancestor didn't appear, no one could stop a Tao-carrying powerhouse at his peak. At this moment, many experts seemed to have eaten a great tonic. Their faces were red as they began to roar, their fighting spirit bursting out. Kill! Swords and sabers were raised, blooming with bright light, dazzling the world. Layers of energy madly burst out, sweeping through the endless space of the star field and shaking the universe. The experts of the 3,000 boundless worlds and the 33 heavens all began to chase after the devil race who was fleeing at high speed. The world's strongest expert had already appeared, there was no reason not to fight. This time, everyone believed that they could smoothly kill their way into the 18 layers of hell and disturb the recovering demon ancestor. If Lu Xiaoyu could kill him, then the rest of the demon race wouldn't be a threat at all. Kill! There was no need for any additional instructions. Chu Dao Ju, Ling Feng, Long San, Du Xiaojing, Du Xiaoyao, Little Xingxing, and the other immortal realm experts all wielded their weapons and chased after the demon race experts. The meditative realm experts of the two great worlds didn't slack off at all. They all attacked the meditative realm experts of Dongli Chi Huang, Chen Yan, and the other demons. All of them had the same goal, and that was to kill their way back into the 18 levels of hell. Moreover, this time, they had to kill their way to the deepest depths. Boss! At this time, Xiaolong, Dizazes, Di Badian Thousand Demon, Anghua, Lu Xintong, Lu Jingyun, Du, Lu Jingyun, and Du Xiaofu, and a few other experts. This is SSSSS Worlds Boundless World Heavens, S Worlds. Lu Xiaoyu smiled as he looked at the crowd. Then, he turned to look at heavy sword edgeless Yang Gua and poison spirit which Lu Xintong. One of them was his elder brother, and the other was his younger sister. Lu Xiaoyu naturally knew their situation. He himself was a little surprised. Normally, it wasn't easy for Ho Tian lifeforms to reach the half-step Dao realm. In the entire world, only he and Xiaolong could do it. Now that Yang Gua and Lu Xintong had also broken through, it was a great thing. Lu Xiaoyu was extremely gratified. Xiaoyu, let's chase after them. We can't let those demons off so easily. Yang Gua said to Lu Xiaoyu with his sword in hand, his eyes bright. The others also looked at him with shining eyes, waiting for the strongest expert in the world to lead them into the 18 levels of hell. No matter. Since I'm back, let's proceed according to the original plan. Lu Xiaoyu nodded lightly. However, he didn't do anything. He just looked at everyone and said, "This trip to the 18 levels of hell will mainly depend on you guys to fight against the devil race. During this process, everyone can undergo some training and improve your strength. I hope that after entering the 18 levels of hell, when we truly face the demon ancestor, you'll have the strength to kill him." As he spoke, Lu Xiaoyu's gaze shifted to Du Xiaofu. According to his plans, Du Xiaofu was the key to everything. If they wanted to kill the demon ancestor, they had to rely on him. However, Du Xiaofu's current strength was still somewhat lacking. He hadn't truly crossed that threshold and didn't have the strength to kill Jiangchen. Therefore, Lu Xiaoyu's arrangement was to let Du Xiaofu undergo high-intensity training in the 18 levels of hell. At the same time, he would be escorting Du Xiaofu, allowing him to enter a state of comprehension at any time and go into seclusion alone. So long as Du Xiaofu could break through to the Dao realm by the time they reached the 18 levels of hell, he'd have the strength to truly fight. When that happened, it would be the final moment to resolve everything. "Senior brother, I understand." Du Xiaofu nodded solemnly when he met Lu Xiaoyu's gaze. He felt immense pressure in his heart, but at the same time, he found it difficult to suppress his will. How could he not understand what his senior brother was saying? He was saying that the ultimate fate of all the experts in the 33 heavens and the 3,000 universes rested on his shoulders. This made Du Xiaofu feel even more burdened with responsibility. However, he wasn't afraid. Instead, he inwardly encouraged himself. He absolutely had to break through during this trip to the 18 levels of hell and enter the ranks of sovereign powerhouses. Then, he'd pose a sufficient threat to Jiangchen. As long as you understand. Lu Xiaoyu nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. He knew that Du Xiaofu was already outstanding enough. In just a few short millennia, he'd managed to reach this point. In any other era, this was unimaginable. Even Lu Xiaoyu himself had experienced a relatively long process of rising to prominence in the 3,000 universes. Thus, Lu Xiaoyu felt that the pressure he'd placed on Du Xiaofu was immense, but he couldn't afford to slack off. Fortunately, the kid's strength had continued to grow, far surpassing his expectations. At the same time, it also meant that his arrangements in Shenwu world had been the most effective. That was why Du Xiaofu's path had been so smooth and his growth so rapid. It would be difficult to find anything else in the world that would make him feel so gratified. "Boss, have you already taken that step?" Xiaolong suddenly leaned forward and stared at Lu Xiaoyu's nose. He asked seriously. Upon hearing this, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, Lu Xintong, and the others all turned to look at Lu Xiaoyu. He was eagerly anticipating his boss's answer. He wanted to hear the result he'd imagined. But after he asked this question, Lu Xiaoyu only smiled and then gently shook his head, not saying a word. This answer was within everyone's expectations, although it didn't go as they'd hoped. Everyone knew that the last step was extremely difficult. At the very least, it was much more difficult than breaking through from the half-step carrier realm to the carrier realm. Lu Xiaoyu's breakthrough in his early years and his possession of the carrier realm body had already exceeded everyone's expectations. Therefore, even if Lu Xiaoyu didn't break through the last step, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Xiaolong, and the others weren't surprised. Let's go. It's time to enter the 18 layers of hell for the final battle. Lu Xiaoyu didn't explain too much to the others. He simply said so. With a wave of his arm, he brought the people around him with him. In the next instant, they appeared on the path of the demon clan. Kill! Du Xiaofu, Lu Jingyun, and the other meditative experts charged into the midst of the devil race. They each found their opponents and launched a fierce attack. Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong were about to attack, but they were stopped by Lu Xiaoyu. Their target was the devil race's 9 devil generals. This time, with Lu Xiaoyu present, they wouldn't be afraid of the 9 devil generals. However, Lu Xiaoyu clearly didn't intend to kill the 9 devil generals. Instead, he motioned for Xiaolong and the others to follow him and watch quietly. There was no need for them to interfere in the battle elsewhere. Seeing this, the 9 devil generals who were running for their lives were overjoyed. Lu Xiaoyu not attacking was a great thing for them. They didn't need to think too much. The only thought in their minds was to run for their lives. The experts of the devil race can't die here. The blood god demon general sensed all this and suddenly thought so. There were many other experts of the devil race in the surroundings. These people were the strength of the devil race. If they were all lost here, they wouldn't be able to answer to the devil ancestor when he returned in the future. With this thought in mind, the 9 devil generals suddenly became serious. Then, they opened a space gap. Inside it was an independent space similar to Lu Xiaoyun's. They wanted to put all the experts of the devil race in it and escape with them. However, just as the space was about to open up, a saber light suddenly shot out, directly charging into the independent space created by the 9 demon generals. This saber light was terrifying and carried a strangling power. In the blink of an eye, it twisted the space into powder, turning it into the purest spatial law patterns. The independent space of the 9 great demon generals was actually destroyed in an instant. Damned Lu Xiaoyu, is he trying to kill all of us? The fierce locust demon general screamed and almost went berserk. Lu Xiaoyu's strength was too strong. Their space couldn't withstand his attack at all. The most puzzling thing was that the brat didn't attack them himself. Instead, he interfered with them, taking away the other experts of the devil race. This clearly showed that he wanted to kill everyone in the devil race. Let's go. The Ming Luo demon general gritted his teeth and said with hatred. Seeing through Lu Xiaoyu's thoughts, they didn't ask for anything more. They were weaker than him, so they could only be cowards. Unable to bring away the many experts of the devil race, the 9 devil generals immediately gave up. As long as Lu Xiaoyu didn't attack, at the very least, it was not difficult for the 9 of them to leave. With this thought, the 9 devil generals increased their speed again, speeding out, no longer caring about the rest of the devil race. Qi La, however, right at this time, another saber light suddenly slashed down, like a resplendent light curtain sprinkling down, like the Milky Way pouring down from the 9 heavens, directly blocking the path of the 9 devil generals. Facing such a terrifying saber light curtain, none of them dared to touch it. Lu Xiaoyu's supreme cultivation was displayed. If they forcefully collided, they would either die or be injured. Lu Xiaoyu, what the hell are you trying to do? The hatred in the hearts of the 9 devil generals reached the point of no return. That Lu Xiaoyu's meaning was not planning on letting them leave just like this. Since he didn't fight, but also didn't let them leave, the 9 devil generals were also unable to understand what the other party was trying to do. As the devil race's 9 devil generals, could it be that you're going to escape just like this? If there weren't your existence, how could this hunting game be exciting? From behind, Lu Xiaoyu's light voice came, like an ancient well without ripples. These words, in the ears of the 9 devil generals, caused them to grit their teeth. If it weren't for the fact that they no longer had the strength, they would definitely want Lu Xiaoyu to die without a burial place, turn him into ashes, and disappear into nothingness. Damn bastard! Demon General Duo Yu's eyes were extremely deep as he shouted hatefully. The 9 great demon generals exchanged glances with each other. Then, they suddenly charged forward, wanting to give it another try. As expected, what welcomed them in front was Lu Xiaoyu's saber light, directly blocking their path, causing them to be unable to move forward. The 9 devil generals had no choice but to stop and not force their way through. Lu Xiaoyu's intention was very clear. He didn't want the 9 of them to leave so easily. Since you don't want us to leave, then let's fight. Luan Su snorted and instantly changed directions. Instead, he rushed towards the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great thousand worlds. When the other 8 devil generals saw this, they also made the same decision. Since they couldn't escape from Lu Xiaoyu's obstruction, they might as well turn around and kill their way through the crowd. Didn't the 33 heavens and the 3,000 greater worlds want to push all the way to the 18th level of hell? Then, in the process, let these people feel the pain. The 9 devil generals did indeed have the capital to do so. Lu Xiaoyu had already made it clear that he wouldn't deal with them. Since that was the case, they might as well display their strength and cause a huge loss to the 33 heavens and the 3,000 greater worlds. With such thoughts in mind, the 9 devil generals attacked angrily, all of them releasing terrifying devil chi that could topple mountains and overturn seas, attacking the people of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 greater worlds. Once such an attack landed, it would definitely be able to kill a large number of experts, causing a huge loss to the people of the 2 worlds. A bunch of fools. Boss won't let you leave, but will he let you attack as you wish? This is just a game, and the 9 of you are an important factor in this game. Naturally, you have to be restrained properly. Beside Lu Xiaoyu, Xiaolong curled his lips and mocked. As a brother, Xiaolong naturally understood what his boss was thinking. Sure enough, right when he hadn't finished speaking, Lu Xiaoyu struck out with another ferocious blade light, and it revolved as it slashed down. It transformed into a cage that enveloped the attacks of the 9 demon generals within it. Immediately thereafter, the saber projections entangled the attacks unleashed by the 9 nascent soul cultivators with all their might, and they were completely annihilated without even being able to create a bubble, let alone inflict any damage to the powerful beings of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 upper realms. Huff, huff, the 9 devil generals' faces were filled with hatred as they panted heavily, their anger reaching the extreme. Their path of attack had been blocked. Just as Long Xian had said, Lu Xiaoyu would not tolerate them wantonly attacking. At this time, the 9 devil generals finally realized that they had really become a joke in Lu Xiaoyu's eyes. With a little thought, it wasn't difficult to imagine his true intentions. He wants to leave us until the end and let Du Xiaofu and the others practice. The Hun devil generals' eyes were about to pop out of their sockets, filled with hatred. Lu Xiaoyu didn't kill them, didn't let them go, and didn't let the 9 devil generals participate in the battle. This was clearly to raise them. The 9 devil generals had no other use, but they were good stepping stones. For Du Xiaofu, who had a chance to break through to the Tao-bearing realm, they were the best training materials. Ha ha ha. You know your own place and your own use. Xiaolong laughed heartily and looked at the 9 demon generals with a mocking expression. Well said, you guys are those fat little piglets that are waiting to be raised to be strong enough to be slaughtered during the festive season. Boss should have prepared a pigsty for you, stay inside and enjoy it. As he spoke, Xiaolong looked at Lu Xiaoyu, as if he had seen through the other party's thoughts and wanted to confirm it. After Xiaolong finished speaking, Lu Xiaoyu revealed a relaxed smile and said, Xiaolong knows boss best. I've indeed prepared a pigsty for them. But unfortunately, there isn't any pig food. Fortunately, these little piglets are fat enough, and they'll be able to make a table full of sumptuous dishes during festivals. Lu Xiaoyu's eyes narrowed while his fingers danced about. Numerous strange seals were formed by him, and they transformed into mysterious and obscure markings of the Grand Tao that emanated a terrifying and monstrous force. Huff. Huff. Huff, these mysterious markings were ceaselessly combined and transformed like numerous shapeless threads that interweaved with each other and slowly weaved a terrifying net of the Grand Tao in his hands. The source of energy for this net of the Grand Tao was the Grand Tao that Lu Xiaoyu had comprehended himself, and it even contained the powerful quintessence energy of chaos, causing it to be extremely terrifying. OM. 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 A special pressure started to appear in the sky, and it suddenly descended. Under this pressure, the bodies of the 9 demon generals began to tremble violently, as if they were sifting chaff. They smelled a strong aura of danger. The net of light in Lu Xiaoyu's hand was only the size of a few palms, but it carried the most terrifying force as it was projected into the sky. At this time, how could the 9 devil generals not understand what kind of fate they would face? They couldn't help but be terrified to death. Chapter 29:51. Rumble. As Lu Xiaoyu continued to move, a monstrous force began to explode in the surroundings. It was as if a huge mountain was collapsing. Mountain rocks rolled, and the sound of thousands of soldiers and horses galloping could be heard. At this time, the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds had already entered the first level of hell. The commotion caused by Lu Xiaoyu caused everyone to be extremely shocked. They couldn't help but open their eyes and look over. Du Xiaofu, who was rampaging through the crowd of demons, also diverted some of his attention to pay attention to this terrifying movement. Chi La La, under Lu Xiaoyu's command, an extremely shocking scene suddenly appeared in the sky above the first level of hell. Streaks of bright light appeared one after another, slicing open cracks in the sky. It looked like a broken eggshell, filled with fine patterns. In a place where no one could see, outside the first level of hell, in the boundless starry sky, the orbit of countless stars changed. The energy produced surged out like a tide. This energy finally followed an invisible path and was transmitted to the 18 levels of hell. Rumble. In the first level of hell, a terrifying thunderous sound suddenly appeared. At the center of the terrifying net-like patterns in the sky, an object that looked like a thunderbolt suddenly struck down. However, it contained a variety of complicated energy. It directly fell down and was connected to the light net in Lu Xiaoyu's hand. As the thunderous light flashed down, layers of vast and boundless energy surged in. It was like a raging wave that directly tore the void into pieces. It transformed into a terrifying chaotic state that caused one's scalp to turn numb at the sight of it. This energy was transmitted into the light net in Du Xiaofu's hand in an instant. Swish! In an instant, the light net in Lu Xiaoyu's hand seemed to have eaten a large dose of tonic. In an instant, it expanded thousands of times and quickly spread out, spinning and flying. The huge light net descended like the sky was pressing down. It carried a heavy, vast, and boundless energy. It was earth-shattering, and it pressed down on the 9 great demon generals. Run! There was no need to think at all. The Blood God Demon General, Ming Luo Demon General, Desolate Fiend Demon General, Qi Yen Demon General, Fierce Locust Demon General, Duo Yu Demon General, Luen Su Demon General, Evading Shadow Demon General, and Hun Demon General were all extremely shocked. It was as if the sky was falling and the earth was collapsing. It was extremely terrifying. It was not difficult for them to feel the terror of the light net. Once it pressed down on their bodies, it was most likely that they would not have any possibility of escaping. At that time, it was just as Long Xian's words, they were afraid that they would all become little pigs waiting for the slaughter. Their lives, their lives, their lives, their lives, and their lives, they would become the stepping stones on Du Xiaofu's path. Do you all think you can escape? These words coming from Lu Xiaofu Xiaoyu, Lu Xiaoyu, Lu Xiao, Lu Xiao Lu. The 9 great demon generals were like jumping mosquitoes. No matter what they did, they could not escape the suppression of the heavenly net. As the terrifying light net pressed down on them, the 9 great demon generals felt as if Mount Tai was pressing down on them. Layers upon layers of energy rolled over them. It was extremely terrifying. They used everything they had, but they could not break free from this oppression. Boom! Boom! In a loud rumble, the bodies of the 9 great demon generals were pressed down one after another. At the same time, the light net continued to shrink and shrink. The lines and lines were compressed and became extremely solid. In the end, the light net turned into a transparent sphere, trapping the 9 great demon generals inside. It was impossible for them to break free. How could the 9 great demon generals just sit there and wait for death? Layers upon layers of terrifying attacks landed, trying to break free from this cage. However, what made them disappointed was that Lu Xiaoyu was far too powerful. The layer of seal he set down directly restrained them. After all, this was not the beginning of the ancient era. The 9 great demon generals' abilities were greatly reduced and they were far too weak compared to Lu Xiaoyu. Their continuous attacks only caused the cage to tremble. They could not break free quickly. Lu Xiaoyu, I am not done with you. The red flame demon general screamed crazily, venting the fear in his heart. One day, the demon ancestor will cut you into pieces and make you die without a burial place. The demon general Duoyu screamed as well, full of hatred towards Lu Xiaoyu. The 9 great demon generals were not going to give up just like that. As they screamed, they continued to attack. On top of the spherical cage, pieces would fall off from time to time, weakening the power of the seal. He. When these 9 little pigs break free from this cage, who knows which grandma's birthday will be. Looking at the 9 great demon generals' actions, Xiaolong was gloating. One has to admit that when the 9 great demon generals worked together, their abilities were terrifying. Even though the seal was set up by Ling Xian, under their continuous attacks, it was still trembling. However, this kind of exhaustion was extremely small. To truly break free from this seal, who knows how many years it will take. When that time comes, it will be time for these little pigs to break free. Next to Xiaolong, Lu Xiaoyu smiled. After attacking just now, he'd used up quite a bit of energy. His forehead was covered in fine beads of sweat. Suppressing 9 great demon generals at the same time wasn't an easy task. Now, it's up to Du Xiaofu, that brat. Di Batian turned his head and looked at Du Xiaofu, who was in the midst of the crowd. At that moment, the purple-robed youth was fighting with all his might against a number of meditated demon experts. Du Xiaofu was now a second-stage phantom cultivator. His strength was comparable to a peak third-stage meditated cultivator. He was terrifying beyond compare. He waved the heavenly tower of purple gold in his hand again and again, like a real god attacking. His attacks carried with them a boundless aura of ruthlessness and savagery, causing heaven and earth to tremble. It was as if he could stir up all 18 layers of hell. We've placed all our hopes on him. We're all counting on him. Donghuang Taishuan's expression was equally serious. They all knew of Lu Xiaoyu's plans. Du Xiaofu was the most important factor in the final phase. If they wanted to completely kill Jiangchen, they could only rely on him. Lu Xiaoyu, Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taishuan, Nanghua, and Lu Xintong didn't plan on doing anything. They would only assist from the side. Every time they saw the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 universes in danger, they'd lend a hand. Most importantly, they wanted to see Du Xiaofu perform alone. Everyone had the same hope. They all hoped that Du Xiaofu would succeed in breaking through that crucial step. Only then would they have enough confidence to fight the final battle against the demons. Those 2 fellows sure ran fast. Suddenly, Yang Guo's lips curled into a faint smile. 2 figures were moving in the direction of his line of sight. It was Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yan. When Lu Xiaoyu had returned earlier, the 2 demon attendants had already noticed the great change in the situation. They'd immediately fled, not stopping at all. The 2 of them were quite crafty, but how could they truly escape pursuit? No matter how fast they fled, they could only live for a short period of time. In the eyes of an expert like Lu Xiaoyu, Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yan's escape seemed so weak and laughable. Leave them all to Xiaofu. We'll relax a little and just watch. Xiaolong smiled faintly. Suddenly, he unleashed a terrifying wave of attacks, forcing back several demons on the battlefield and freeing a besieged expert of the 33 heavens. In the following period of time, the 33 heavens and the 3,000 universes engaged in a terrifying battle with the demons. However, what was terrifying was that the majority of the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 universes actually died. On the contrary, on the side of the demons, lives were reaped one after another. Their bodies were turned into blood mist, dying an unnatural death. Lu Xiaoyu, Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixien, Ongua, and Lu Xintong were like gods that walked the world. They stood high and mighty, occasionally attacking. Every time they discovered that the experts of the 33 heavens or the 3,000 universes were in danger, they would unleash a wave of resplendent light, forming a powerful attack that would force the demons back. However, they wouldn't easily take the lives of the demons. They were like 6 formidable guardians that led the people of the 2 great worlds to carry out a terrifying slaughter. For the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 universes, this was a rare experience. They had enough strength to kill without worrying about their lives being taken. The only thing they needed to do was to constantly kill a large number of demons. In such a scene, the experts pushed forward. As the demons fled for their lives, it didn't take long for them to leave the first layer of hell and enter the second layer of hell. Du Xiaofu didn't deliberately chase after Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yan. He fought against 3 meditative forgetfulness experts by himself. 2 of the 3 were at the 3rd level of meditative forgetfulness, and the last one was at the 2nd level of meditative forgetfulness. Not long after they entered the 2nd level of hell, the devil at the 2nd level of meditative realm died at Du Xiaofu's hands. He was sliced in half by Du Xiaofu's origin murdering sky sword, turning into a dense mist of blood that scattered into the void. Kill. The other experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 universes were also in high spirits. They had a terrifying will that was difficult to express. Lu Xiaoyu was like a stabilizing needle that stabilized the sea, stabilizing everyone's hearts. As the demons continued to retreat, it aroused the killing intent of the experts even more. This was a one-sided slaughter. Lives were reaped, and countless demons died. By the time the experts entered the 4th layer of hell, no less than 2 million demons had died. Among them, at least 500,000 were at the immortal realm, and the rest were mostly at the truth-severing and seizing divinity realm. After such a situation appeared, the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 universes had an even easier time killing the demons. In terms of overall strength, they had a huge advantage. The more demons died, the easier it was for them to fight. In the end, Lu Xiaoyu and the others fought less and less, no longer needing to deliberately protect them. Among them, the one that the demons were most afraid of was the purple-robed young man Du Xiaofu. This young man was as terrifying as a god of death. The broadsword in his hand was like the scythe of the god of death, constantly reaping the lives of the demons. By the time they entered the 5th layer of hell, 3 meditative forgetfulness experts and over 100 immortal realm experts had died at his hands. Du Xiaofu's entire body was soaked in fresh blood. It was demon blood, and it emitted a strong, pungent odor. Boss, what we're doing will indeed deal a huge blow to the demons, but won't it take too much time? Why don't we enter the 18th layer of hell first and disturb the demon ancestor to prevent him from recovering too quickly? As they advanced, Xiaolong suddenly spoke to Lu Xiaoyu. His eyebrows furrowed together. To the powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds, the greatest threat came from the demon ancestor. As for the 9 demon generals, the 2 demon attendants, and the massive number of other demon powerhouses, they weren't a threat at all. If too much time passed, they wouldn't have entered the 18th layer of hell by the time Jiang Chen recovered. Or rather, Du Xiaofu wouldn't have successfully broken through to the Dao carrier realm. When that happened, they'd be faced with an enormous disaster. Xiaolong naturally didn't want to see that happen. Thus, he felt that it'd be best for his boss to take him, Di Batian, and the others directly to the 18th layer of hell and interrupt the demon ancestor's recovery. That was the best plan. There's no hurry. If Jiang Chen wants to recover, he won't be able to do so quickly. Lu Xiaoyu nodded, but didn't immediately agree with Xiaolong. He said, "Let's wait for a while longer. I'm aware of the demon ancestors' movements. There's no need to worry too much." When Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Yang Gua, and Lu Xintong heard Lu Xiaoyou's words, they all nodded. This guy definitely had absolute confidence that he had everything under control. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said all this so casually. Many years ago, when the heavenly Tao of Shenwu worlds suppressed the demon gods, Lu Xiaoyu had already planned and made ample preparations, all in order to welcome the return of the demon race. Now that he'd returned, he'd naturally made all the necessary arrangements. He was aware of the demon ancestors' movements at all times. It was precisely because of this that everyone felt increasingly confident. Now, the only thing they had to worry about was Du Xiaofu's condition. Du Xiaofu, that kid, has only cultivated for a few thousand years. Perhaps we're being too harsh by placing all our hopes on him. Di Batian suddenly lowered his eyes and said softly. As for Du Xiaofu, Di Batian and Donghuang Taixian had developed an extreme admiration for the purple-robed young man after going through the 18 levels of hell. That kid was an anomaly. His cultivation speed wasn't something that ordinary people could compare to. Even the two of them, who'd been around since the birth of the 3,000 boundless worlds, felt a heavy blow when compared to him. In a few thousand years, he'd grown from a mortal who couldn't cultivate to his current level. It was truly unimaginable. Han Gu's world had existed for so many years after the Great War against the demons, but not a single person like that had appeared. Even the most outstanding of them couldn't hope to catch up to him. Even the patriarchs of the major forces could only blush in shame when compared to him. Of course, all of this couldn't be helped by Lu Xiaofu. He was the one who led Du Xiaofu's growth step by step, from a lowly person to a powerful one, and eventually to a supreme realm. Everyone could imagine how much pain the purple-robed youth had suffered along the way, how many injuries he had suffered, and how much blood he had lost. To him, even though this journey was glorious, he had to go through unimaginable suffering. It was precisely because of this that Di Batian couldn't help but feel a little sympathetic. He only felt that they were asking too much of Du Xiaofu. "I believe that he can do it. It's all because of 3 words." Lu Xiaofu's eyes were incomparably deep as he said aloud. "What 3 words?" The expressions of the people around him froze. They were extremely curious and looked at him almost in unison, wanting to hear what Lu Xiaofu had to say. Faced with so many pairs of blazing eyes, Lu Xiaofu smiled and spat out 3 words from between his lips, "Du Xiaofu." When everyone heard this, they were all stunned. But after a moment, they understood what Lu Xiaofu meant. That's right. He's Du Xiaofu. He can definitely do it. Xiaolong carefully thought about it and said in a low voice. At the side, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, and the others nodded when they heard that. Yes, because he's Du Xiaofu, he can definitely do it. After understanding some of that kid's experiences, who would still dare to doubt him? When he was weak, no one believed that Du Xiaofu could become strong, but he did it again and again. Many powerful people's faces were swollen because of him. Many powerful people who were unrivaled and arrogant in the world were trampled under his feet. That was Du Xiaofu. Time after time, he refreshed the world's understanding of him and showed them what it meant to be incredible. Just based on his name alone, it meant that there was nothing in the world that he couldn't do. If he wanted to, he could definitely do it. I'm looking forward to that day. Even if I have to look up to him with reverence, it will still be comforting to see him walk up the altar. Donghuang Taixian suddenly raised his head and was filled with emotions. There was only one Lu Xiaoyu in the world. If there was a second Lu Xiaoyu, it would be a great blessing. As an elder who had lived for countless years, he had been strong for many years, but he still couldn't find the final glimmer of hope. After seeing Lu Xiaoyu surpass him, if he could see Du Xiaofu in the sky and rise again, it would definitely be a great honor in his life. With the help of the path taken by the two of them, he and Di Batian, who had been stuck at the half-step realm of Tao for countless years, would also see more hope for a breakthrough. That day will appear in the near future. When Di Batian heard Dong Huang Taishuan's words, his whole body was filled with a special spirit. He felt a little lonely, a little empty, and also a little hopeful. At this time, the two of them were especially looking forward to that day. They wanted to see that day come as soon as possible. They wanted to see how Du Xiaofu would kill the devil ancestor, how he would stand at the pinnacle of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 sectors. They wanted to see how he would stand together with his senior brother Lu Xiaoyu at the highest point, overlooking everything in the world. Chapter 2952. Just the thought of it was enough to make one's blood boil. Let's just wait quietly. He'll definitely succeed. At the side, Lu Xiaoyu smiled as he spoke. After that, no one said anything else. They continued to use the power of their primordial spirits to observe the situation on the battlefield. The demons were fleeing in disorder. Many of their powerhouses had been killed, and their overall strength had been greatly reduced. Under these circumstances, the powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 realms were practically suppressing the demons, causing them to be utterly defeated. More and more demons were dying in battle. The situation was beginning to tilt in their favor. Lu Xiaoyu, Xiaolong, Di Batian, and the others attacked from time to time, interrupting the demons' counterattacks. They couldn't fight back at all. In addition, Lu Xiaoyu sealed the 9 demon generals, keeping them trapped in the ball of light. The 9 demon generals attacked again and again, causing the ball of light to tremble violently. However, they couldn't truly break through it. Just as Xiaolong had predicted, it was impossible to say how long it would take for them to break through the seal. Countless powerhouses advanced through the 18 layers of hell. They were incomparably ferocious, accompanied by terrifying slaughter. This was a relatively long process. It was even more time-consuming than when Du Xiaofu and the others first started to advance. By the time they reached the 7th layer of hell, they'd already spent hundreds of years. It's been hundreds of years. I wonder how much Jiangchen has recovered. Du Xiaofu couldn't help but wonder as he hovered in the air after slicing through the body of an immortal demon. He was somewhat worried. Every day was precious, whether to Jiangchen, the 33 heavens, or the 3,000 realms. What worried Du Xiaofu the most was his own cultivation. It could be said that his senior brother, Du Xiaofu, had placed all his hopes on him. However, after hundreds of years of terrifying slaughter, who knew how many demons had died at his hands? Even now, Du Xiaofu still hadn't found a sliver of an opportunity to break through. He'd already reached the peak of the 2nd level of the Void Tao, but when he raised his head, everything was still hazy. He couldn't see anything higher. Carrying the Tao, is to walk one's own Tao. But how can I truly take this step? Du Xiaofu furrowed his brows as he continued to ponder. In these years of battle, he had been constantly thinking about the answer, but he was unable to grasp the most crucial point. Everyone in the world was clear about the concept of carrying the Tao. However, Du Xiaofu felt that it was too difficult to reach that realm after careful calculation. After all, other than the primordial fiend gods, all living beings were born in the world, which was the world created by the fiend gods. In this way, countless living beings would naturally be restricted and restrained by the laws of the heavens and earth. Those who walked on the path of cultivation would have to follow the laws of the heavens and earth and the true meaning of the Grand Tao step by step. In other words, Du Xiaofu and countless other experts were able to reach the highest point in the world and stand above countless creatures. But in the process, they also integrated the power of the world into their bodies step by step. Everything they comprehended was built on the foundation of the power of the world. And the power of the world came from the primordial fiend gods, from Pangu, exalted celestial, demon ancestor Rahu, and so on. Since I want to walk my own Tao, I must first break free from the shackles of others and transcend the restrictions of the heavens and earth. Du Xiaofu thought in his heart as he muttered to himself. Living beings were born in the world and lived under the laws. They lived in the Grand Tao and the laws at all times. If they wanted to survive, they had to follow the true meaning of the laws of the primordial fiend gods. It could even be said that everything a living being possessed was a product of the Grand Tao of the heavens and earth. Under such circumstances, how could one truly break free from the shackles of the heavens and earth and walk out the Grand Tao that belonged to one's own? The advancement of each level brings with it an endless challenge. And the carrying Tao realm is even better than before. Du Xiaofu felt a little vexed. It was no wonder that senior brother Lu Xiaoyu was the only Hotian living being who had reached the level of Tao bearer since the beginning of time. It was because this step was too difficult. It was so difficult that even those old monsters who had lived for countless years could not take such a step. I'd better ask senior brother and the others for advice. Du Xiaofu thought for a while and finally looked at Lu Xiaoyu, Xiaolong, and the others in the distance. He only felt that if he just relied on his own thinking, he did not know how long it would take for him to get an answer. Senior brother was already a carrying Tao realm expert. Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Donghua, and Lu Xintong could also be considered to have taken a critical step. Their opinions would certainly be of some reference. Thinking of this, Du Xiaofu did not delay any longer. He glanced at the fighting around the battlefield and found that the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds had the absolute upper hand, so he was not worried about anything. Then, his figure flashed and appeared directly beside Lu Xiaoyu. Junior brother, do you have something to ask? Du Xiaofu's arrival did not surprise Lu Xiaoyu in the slightest. As soon as Du Xiaofu stood firm, he asked with a smile, as if he had already guessed Du Xiaofu's purpose. Senior brother, I'd like to ask, what is one's own Tao? Du Xiaofu nodded and did not beat around the bush, directly asking Lu Xiaoyu. The concept of one's own Tao was extremely illusory and difficult to grasp. Du Xiaofu could not comprehend the answer he wanted at all, so he could only ask senior brother Lu Xiaoyu. Kid, I'm afraid you've been troubled by this question for a long time, right? Before Lu Xiaoyu could speak, Xiaolong next to him smiled and looked at Du Xiaofu. Yes, ever since I knew this concept, I've been thinking about it. But until today, I realized that the more I think about it, the more obscure it is. It's as if I've fallen into a vicious circle, and I can't get out of it at all. Du Xiaofu told the 6 experts one by one the questions he had thought of. The most important point was that living beings were born between heaven and earth, and they were the products of the Great Tao. How could they transcend the Great Tao? Could it be that they had to abandon everything in order to be reborn? As his cultivation became deeper and closer, Du Xiaofu became more and more confused, unable to distinguish between things and things. What you think is right, but it's also not right. Lu Xiaoyu looked at Du Xiaofu with a smile on his face, and said to him very patiently, in fact, the concept of one's own Tao is indeed illusory. It's just a vague way of saying that the world has added to it. Just as you said, living beings are born from heaven and earth, and are derived from the Great Tao. It's impossible for them to completely escape from everything given by the Great Tao. If you think about it carefully, you'll know that the Great Tao is derived from the 4 primeval laws of time, space, matter, and soul. These 4 laws have an enormous influence on living beings at all times. If these traces are completely erased, then wouldn't it be equivalent to being obliterated into the dust and ceasing to exist? How could one escape the shackles of heaven and earth and the shackles of the Great Tao without life? So, if you want to take that critical step, then you can't completely escape from the Great Tao and heaven and go against all the influence of the energy of the world. If you think about it carefully, you'll know that all along the way, the cultivation of every realm is to lay down a solid foundation for the next realm. Moreover, when you reach the next realm, you'll seek a higher breakthrough and possess even stronger strength. According to this train of thought, you can imagine that when you're in the Void Tao realm, you're also laying down the foundation for the Tao Carrier realm. No matter if the next step is to build a strategically advantageous position or to break and rebuild, the foundation is still the same. Lu Xiaoyu said a lot at once, and Du Xiaofu also listened carefully to every word. As he listened, he also pondered over the true meaning behind it. It wasn't just him, even Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Yang Gua, and Lu Xintong were listening with fascination. All 5 of them were at the half-step Dao carrier realm now, and they possessed a trace of their own Dao. So, it wasn't the first time they'd heard what Lu Xiaoyu said, but when they listened to it once more, they were faintly able to comprehend a different meaning. Senior brother, then what should I do? Du Xiaofu thought for a long time, and he asked once more after digesting Lu Xiaoyu's words. He understood the meaning behind Chen Shi's words, and it was basically to point out his own misconceptions. Escaping the shackles of heaven and earth wasn't equal to escaping everything that the great Tao had bestowed upon him. What he needed to do was to find a breakthrough in his current cultivation base. This kind of breakthrough could be like in the past, where he would take a step further from his original foundation, or he could treat his current cultivation base as a giant mountain and cause it to collapse and transform into a brand new appearance. This was the true meaning of the Dao carrier realm. Let me give you a few examples, and perhaps you'll understand a little. Hearing Du Xiaofu's question, Lu Xiaoyu had no intention of hiding anything, and he directly said, "Your own Dao, as the name suggests, is something that you comprehend on your own, and it's unique in this world. I've made some summaries, just like the ancient great god Pangu, his Dao can be called the Dao of all living beings, and the devil ancestor's Dao is the Dao of slaughter. The Dao of all living beings opens up a vast world for the prosperity of all living beings, and for the prosperity of all races. Back in the ancient times, Pangu world had produced countless powerful beings. Back then, the world didn't fall apart like it did now. Instead, it was a whole, thriving and thriving. In the Pangu world, Dao carrier realm experts emerged one after another, and if it weren't for the ancient Great Demon War, which greatly depleted the world's energy, who knows how many living beings would have stepped into the Dao carrier realm by now. Just thinking about it was enough to make one's blood boil. However, in order to protect the present 33 heavens, great god Pangu condensed the energy of many shattered worlds and turned it into a peerless seal, and together with his own power, he trapped the devil ancestor in the 18 layers of hell. He walked the Tao of all living beings, so even if he was on the verge of death, he still wanted to protect the 33 heavens. Hearing Lu Xiaoyu's words, Du Xiaofu was a little shocked. He already knew many things about the ancient times, and when he met the illusion of Great Luo in the divine martial world, the latter had told him that the Pangu world was a whole in ancient times, and there was no concept of 33 heavens. Who would have thought that there was such a reason behind it? It wasn't that Pangu couldn't survive after sealing the devil ancestor, but in order to protect the remaining 33 heavens and countless small worlds, he had no choice but to use his own power to condense many lifeless shattered worlds together and impose a seal on the devil ancestor's world. The Tao of all living beings, the heart of all living beings, great god Pangu was like a benevolent god of creation, carefully protecting everything he created with his own hands to prevent them from being harmed. In that case, the devil ancestor's Tao of slaughter was to kill. He opened up the devil world, and the living beings in it were his tools of slaughter. Therefore, the devil world was also very strong, incomparably terrifying, and exceedingly cruel. Du Xiaofu thought about it and said. He came to this conclusion according to his senior brother's train of thought. Exactly. Lu Xiaoyu smiled and nodded, looking at Du Xiaofu and saying. The reason why the devil race loved to kill so much was because of the devil ancestor's Tao of slaughter. He opened up a world with the Tao of slaughter, and the living beings in it naturally lived by killing. The entire world was scarlet red, filled with the smell of blood. After the devil race began to conquer the Pangu world, this kind of killing stopped. Then, countless devil race people were organized and sent to attack the outside world, brewing the terrifying ancient devil war. Great god Pangu and the devil ancestor both had their own Tao. Senior brother, do you know what kind of Tao Heavenly Lord Daoyuo had? Du Xiaofu raised his head and looked at senior brother Lu Xiaoyu again. He was very concerned about this. It seemed that the Tao of the creator of a world had a very strong influence on the living beings in it. However, the people of Shenwu world didn't seem to be much different from the experts of the 33 heavens. Could it be that the Tao of Heavenly Lord Daoyuo was the same as that of great God Pangu, the Tao of all living beings? Heavenly Lord Daoyuo died long ago. Except for Shenwu world, he didn't leave anything behind. Lu Xiaoyu suddenly sighed, as if he was filled with endless regret, and said, his Tao could be said to be a kind of unyielding Tao that would rather die in glory than live in dishonor. In the ancient times, when the devil race attacked, Heavenly Lord Daoyuo didn't hesitate at all. Even if it was the fledgling Daoyuo world in his own life, he wouldn't let the devil ancestor, who had evil intentions, get any benefits from him. Listening to Lu Xiaoyu's narration, Du Xiaofu couldn't help but nod in agreement. He had understood all of this long ago. Just as senior brother said, in the ancient times, when the devil ancestor attacked Daoyuo world, he thought that Heavenly Lord Daoyuo would submit to protect his own life. Who would have thought that Heavenly Lord Daoyuo would turn around and join hands with great God Pangu to help Pangu world, and even suppress the devil ancestor's body? This kind of action could indeed be called unyielding. However, after Heavenly Lord Daoyuo fell, the fledgling Daoyuo world began to shrink. It was only because of the power that Heavenly Lord Daoyuo left behind that it could barely maintain itself. In the end, this Daoyuo world, which had become the size of a small world, changed its trajectory and became one with the 33 heavens and countless other worlds. Under the influence of the laws of Pangu world, it no longer had such a distinctive characteristic. Otherwise, every living being that came out of Shenwu world would be ferocious people who would rather break than bend. Lu Xiaoyu spoke again and added. At this point, Du Xiaofu truly understood the characteristics of Shenwu world. It turned out that it hadn't fully matured, and then it was influenced by Pangu world. This was why there weren't any obvious differences between the two worlds. In other words, every Tao will carry with it the characteristics or will of the cultivator. Du Xiaofu frowned slightly and came to this conclusion. Whether it was great God Pangu, Heavenly Lord Daoyuo, or the devil ancestor, the worlds created by these three people all had their own distinctive characteristics. And these characteristics were influenced by the creator of the world, and related to their own temperament. Thinking of this, Du Xiaofu couldn't help but think of himself. He had lived for thousands of years and had his own unique characteristics, but it wasn't easy to summarize the most prominent point in a short period of time. This kid, it seems like he understands at once. Seeing Du Xiaofu fall into deep thought, Xiaolong, Di Batian, Onghua, and the others smiled. They all knew that it wasn't difficult for Du Xiaofu to break through to Tao bearing. It was just that he wanted to do it quickly, so that when the devil ancestor fully recovered, he could play a crucial role. But everyone also understood that Du Xiaofu could comprehend these things, but it didn't mean that he could quickly break through and create his own Tao. Just thinking about it made one realize how difficult it was. They didn't expect Du Xiaofu to reach the peak in one go, but if he could use these comprehensions to create a small Tao and set foot on that path, then he would be halfway to success. The rest could only be left to heaven's will. Senior brother, I want to know what kind of Tao you're walking. After thinking for a while, Du Xiaofu looked at Lu Xiaofu and raised his doubts. He looked at the green-robed man in front of him with a deep gaze and even blinked twice, extremely curious. Du Xiaofu asked this question for a reason. As the only expert to break through to Tao bearing as an innate spirit body, his senior brother Lu Xiaofu's Tao was probably more useful than Pangu, Heavenly Lord Daoyuo, and the devil ancestors. It was precisely because of this that Du Xiaofu was very concerned about this question. He stared straight at Lu Xiaofu, wanting to hear his answer. Hearing this question, Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Yang Gua, and Lu Xintong, including Lu Xiaofu, all began to laugh. As the closest people to Lu Xiaofu, the five of them naturally knew what kind of Dao Lu Xiaofu was walking. Boss's Dao is the Dao of the tyrant. Before Lu Xiaoyu could reply, Xiaolong glanced at his boss and said to Du Xiaofu, "Let's go." Chapter 2953. The Way of the Tyrant. Xiaolong's words caused Du Xiaofu to be startled. He looked at his senior brother Lu Xiaoyu in surprise, not quite believing Xiaolong's words. Ever since his rise to power in the divine martial world, he had seen the illusions left behind by his senior apprentice brother. Back in the first level of the 18 layers of hell, when he had chased after the eastern departing Crimson Phoenix and Xin Yan, causing Jiangchen to act against him, he had seen Lu Xiaoyu in person. By now, he had gained quite a bit of understanding of the master of the 3,000 great worlds. However, in Du Xiaofu's impression, senior brother Lu Xiaoyu had always been amiable and always had a kind smile on his face. Where was the aura of a tyrant? If that was the case, wouldn't he be somewhat incompatible with the way of the tyrant? However, thinking about it carefully, Du Xiaofu also remembered that senior brother Lu Xiaoyu had appeared at several crucial moments. The first time he faced the demon ancestor, and then he suppressed the blood ancestor in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. Previously, he had intimidated the 9 demon generals with his absolute strength. Every time he appeared, he had indeed displayed extreme dominance. However, it was clear that these performances alone were insufficient to say that he had walked out of the way of the tyrant. "What's with that look in your eyes?" Seeing Du Xiaofu's suspicious expression, Xiaolong snorted in dissatisfaction. At the same time, he slapped the back of Du Xiaofu's head, almost causing him to stagger. The next moment, the purple-robed young man held his head with a bitter expression, looking as if he had been wronged. He really didn't mean anything else. It was just that he couldn't imagine senior brother Lu Xiaoyu's domineering appearance. Did he have to treat him like this? Thinking of this, Du Xiaofu couldn't help but secretly glare at Xiaolong. If it weren't for the fact that Xiaolong was little Xingxing's father, he would definitely be angry with him. "You still dare to glare at me?" Obviously, Du Xiaofu's little actions did not escape Xiaolong's observation. He snorted and said, "Little Xingxing has been following you for so many years and has been beaten up a lot. As a father, I can't just watch my daughter get bullied without doing anything. That slap just now was not for anything else. From now on, I won't cause trouble for you." Xiaolong glared at Du Xiaofu, obviously wanting to bully him. Beside him, Lu Xiaoyu, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Nanghua, and Lu Xintong were all laughing. This was his biological father settling scores with his adoptive father. Xiaolong was taking revenge for little Xingxing. "This little girl is really an ingrate. See how I'll deal with you in the future." Du Xiaofu was speechless. He clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked, and the veins on his forehead bulged. That damned girl, little Xingxing, actually complained to her father behind his back. "Isn't slapping a technique that I'm used to?" Now, he was actually being used by someone else. Du Xiaofu secretly swore that he would definitely catch little Xingxing and teach her a lesson. Besides, Du Xiaofu also wanted to fight 300 rounds with Xiaolong to vent his anger. But when he thought about the gap between his strength and Xiaolong's, he could only suppress this thought in his heart and give up helplessly. However, suddenly, another "pa" sound was heard. "Boss, you hit me again." Xiaolong had just slapped Du Xiaofu and was feeling proud. But in an instant, the back of his head was suddenly attacked. "You little brat, Du Xiaofu raised little Xingxing for you, and you still treat him like this." Lu Xiaoyu slowly retracted his palm and said casually. "This. How can this be the same?" Xiaolong was the one who felt extremely wronged. He had a bitter look on his face and did not dare to vent his anger on Lu Xiaoyu. Instead, he glared fiercely at Du Xiaofu again. Du Xiaofu rubbed his nose and turned his head to ignore him. Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong laughed heartily at the same time. Du Xiaofu, don't take it to heart. Xiaolong is just using this method to get closer to you. At this time, Yang Guo walked to Du Xiaofu's side and patted him lightly on the shoulder as he said with a smile. That's right. The few of us are as close as brothers and sisters. Since you're my junior, you're naturally our younger brother. But all this while, you seem to treat us like how you treat your seniors. Xiaolong is little Xingxing's father, and you're little Xingxing's father. If the two of you can get along better, that's what little Xingxing would be most happy to see. Lu Xintong's red lips parted slightly as she said this to Du Xiaofu. Through their explanation, Du Xiaofu could understand Xiaolong's actions. Just as Lu Xintong had said, no matter if it was Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Ongua, Lu Xintong, or even his own senior, Lu Xiaoyu, he would often subconsciously treat them as his seniors and treat them with respect and reverence. Through this small scene, he could indeed feel a sense of closeness. It was as though he was slowly becoming part of their small circle. Let's talk about Boss's way of the overlord. Xiaolong rubbed his head a few times before he pouted and started talking. The few of them nodded and then began to tell Du Xiaofu about Lu Xiaoyou's deeds in detail. Sometimes, Xiaolong would tell the story, and sometimes, it would be Lu Xintong's turn. Sometimes, it would be Yang Guo's turn. Di Batian and Donghuang Taixian would also chime in from time to time. After listening to the detailed narration, Du Xiaofu was dumbfounded. He was extremely shocked by Lu Xiaoyou's deeds in the past. Only now did he know that his senior had walked from a lowly position to a glorious position in the small Lingwu world. He had overcome all obstacles and killed all evil. He was unparalleled in his domineering ways. On his path of advancement, there were many geniuses and powerful families. However, those who stood in his way were all killed. Lu Xiaoyou's cultivation path was a chapter about the rise of the overlord. It was filled with hot blood. It was like a king ascending to the heavens. He had the attitude of those who followed him would prosper, and those who opposed him would perish. This was an absolute domineering way that relied on absolute strength as the foundation. Du Xiaofu made a comparison. The process of his senior's rise was somewhat similar to his, but at the same time, it was also very different. The similarity between them was that the paths they had walked were filled with killing and fighting. They were paved with blood and bones. The difference was also very obvious. What his senior Lu Xiaoyu wanted to achieve was to be above everything and be supreme. Lu Xiaoyu did it. He finally succeeded and stood at the highest point in the world. He overlooked the world and became the master of all living things in the 3,000 sectors. However, Du Xiaofu was different. All his efforts were mainly for the reunion of his family, the peace of his loved ones, the safety of his people, and the stability of the world behind him. All his efforts, all his motivation, all came from this. Compared to his senior Lu Xiaoyu, there was no difference between them. They were both doing it for their own obsessions. It was just that their goals were different. Could it be that this is the Tao that I have walked on? Du Xiaofu suddenly fell into deep thought. He frowned and started to think. In a daze, he slowly turned around and walked slowly in the void. He was constantly thinking. Lu Xiaoyu, Xiaolong, and the others did not care about him. They allowed Du Xiaofu to walk alone and comprehend deeply. Under their gazes, Du Xiaofu walked further and further away. Not long after, the second strongest expert of the Devil clan saw the purple-robed young man in a daze. He immediately rushed forward and slashed down with a demonic saber. Just as Du Xiaofu was about to be slashed by the saber, a purple gold light suddenly rushed out from his body. It turned into a fierce and domineering sword light and directly slashed out. This sword light was extremely terrifying. It carried the terrifying power of the great Tao and was close to perfection. The yin and yang qi rotated and rolled endlessly. It instantly defeated the demonic expert's saber attack. Then, the sword light did not weaken and fiercely slashed the demonic expert's body, sending him flying. Demonic blood gushed out of his mouth, and his eyes were filled with panic and shock. He did not dare to sneak attack Du Xiaofu again. What good comprehension! In the distance, Di Batian clicked his tongue and sighed with emotion. Including him, Lu Xiaoyu, Xiaolong, and the others were all shocked by this scene. Du Xiaofu had obviously fallen into a deep state of comprehension and had the ability to spontaneously fight against the enemy. It was obviously unwise to attack him at this time. The demonic expert who launched the sneak attack could be considered unlucky. The attack did not succeed and he was heavily injured instead. I was just about to tell him that if he wants to walk his own path, he has to combine his own characteristics to comprehend it. But I didn't expect this kid to think it through so quickly. It seems that he understands himself very well and is very clear about what he wants. He knows the ultimate goal of his cultivation. Lu Xiaoyu said with a slight smile. He was very gratified that Du Xiaofu suddenly began to comprehend. His own path was difficult to say, but it was also very simple. But to say it was simple, it was also very complicated. However, with this insight, it was a good opportunity for Du Xiaofu to break through. In the following period of time, the purple-robed youth could be seen in various battlefields in the 18 levels of hell. Under the gaze of many experts, the purple-robed youth could be seen in various places. He was like a wandering soul with his head lowered, wandering around aimlessly. In the beginning, many people did not know what was going on with Du Xiaofu. But gradually, they realized that he was comprehending something new. Taking advantage of this opportunity, many experts of the devil race set their sights on Du Xiaofu. They all knew that the purple-robed youth would play an important role in the future battles. Hence, the demonic race would not let him go so easily. Now that this was a godsend opportunity, how could they not attack? If they succeeded, it would cause great damage to the 33 heavens and the 3,000 greater worlds. Lu Xiaoyu's plan would also fail. With this mentality, the demonic race would often launch sneak attacks to kill Du Xiaofu. At the very least, it would be good if they could interrupt his comprehension. We cannot let the demonic race affect the Yuqing godly emperor. Around them, some of the older generation meditative experts saw this scene. How could they let the demonic race's plan come true? Many figures rushed over, with Du Xiaofu as the center, protecting him in the center. Du Xiaofu did have the ability to defend himself, but it was better to be safe than sorry. If he overreached himself and was interrupted, it would not be a good thing. Hence, under the protection of many experts, no one from the demonic race dared to disturb the purple-robed youth. He seemed to be comprehending something and was in an extremely deep state. It was as if he was completely isolated from the outside world. Under such circumstances, the experts continued to push forward, towards the higher levels of the 18 levels of hell. In another direction, the seals of the 9 demon generals were also under Lu Xiaoyu's control. They moved along with the rest of the battlefield. The fates of these 9 people were in Lu Xiaoyu's hands. The reason why he did not kill them now was to leave them for Du Xiaofu to train in the future. Rumble, in the 18 levels of hell, the terrifying massacre was still ongoing. The experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 greater worlds clashed with the demonic race again and again. However, the situation was becoming clearer and clearer. All the advantages were in the 33 heavens and the 3,000 greater worlds' favor. The demonic race was being completely suppressed, and their casualties were unimaginable. At the same time, there were a few demons who were in the meditative realm. They saw the opportunity early and escaped to the deeper parts of hell. Hence, no one chased after them. Those people would face death sooner or later. Sooner or later, it would not make much of a difference. In the end, the meditative realm was of no use. The real battle was between the demon ancestor and Lu Xiaoyu. Those who were not strong enough could not interfere. Now that the situation had reached this stage, Lu Xiaoyu's plan was extremely effective. Other than the demon ancestor and the 9 demon generals, cultivators of other levels would lose their effectiveness. Their influence would be minimized. But we don't have much time left. Outside the various battlefields, Lu Xiaoyu watched the tragic massacre and could not help but slowly frown. At present, everyone had advanced to the 10th level of hell. The demonic race had launched a huge defeat and had no ability to form an effective counterattack. But in his heart, he felt more and more dignified. Glancing into the distance, Du Xiaofu was still wandering, not out of the state of comprehension. However, he did not seem to have any intention of waking up for the time being. It is absolutely impossible for that kid to succeed and break through to the Tao-bearing realm in one go. But this is an opportunity for him to plant a Tao seed, waiting for one day to germinate and grow. Xiaolong chimed in from the side. Lu Xiaoyu nodded. Of course, he knew how difficult it was to break through to the Tao-bearing realm. It was impossible to expect Du Xiaofu to do it in one go. Unfortunately, there wasn't much time left. Over the years, all of Lu Xiaoyu's plans had been flawless. Only Du Xiaofu had been an unstable factor. Just as Di Batian had said, their expectations for Du Xiaofu were too strong. They'd placed all their hopes on him. However, his growth required a process. This was something that could not be forced. The kid's abilities had already far exceeded everyone's expectations. But now, it seemed that he was still a small step away from their ultimate goal. Jiang Chen is about to recover. Perhaps we should intervene. We can't let him recover so easily. Lu Xiaoyu gazed into the void. It was as if he could see the 18 layers of hell, into the deepest depths, and into Jiang Chen's condition. Attacking Jiang Chen was part of his plan. His goal was to buy time for Du Xiaofu. Perhaps we should have intervened long ago. Donghuang Taixian sighed. It seemed to him that interfering with the demon ancestor now was a bit too late. It's not too late to act now. The demon ancestor has just reached a critical juncture. Striking him at this critical juncture is more appropriate than any other time. Lu Xiaoyu smiled faintly and said as such. When the others heard this, they all raised their eyebrows. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go now. Xiaolong couldn't wait any longer and said immediately. His eyes shone with an intense light and surged with murderous intent. You guys stay on the battlefield. I'll go alone. Lu Xiaoyu waved his hand and said to the people beside him. Then, he stepped forward, preparing to leave and head directly to the 18th layer of hell. Boss, why don't we go with you? Perhaps we'll be able to help. Xiaolong hurried over and said hurriedly. He was a bit worried. The demon ancestor was extremely powerful. Even if his recovery process was interrupted, he'd still be extremely fierce. His boss's cultivation was profound. Perhaps he didn't fear the demon ancestor, but Xiaolong still wanted to fight alongside him. Xiaolong is right. Let's go with Big Brother. Lu Xintong also stepped forward gracefully and said. Now that the situation on the battlefield is under control, even if we leave, there won't be any major accidents. We'd better go with you to the 18th layer of hell. When we face the demon ancestor, perhaps he can provide us with some insights. Yang Guo also said, wanting to go with Lu Xiaoyu. Now that the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great thousand worlds were so powerful, the demon race had no power to resist at all. Under such circumstances, the half-step Great Path Realm experts wouldn't be of much help if they stayed here. It was better to go with Lu Xiaoyu to the 18th layer of hell and fight the demon ancestor. In an instant, Yang Guo, Xiaolong, Lu Xintong, Di Batian, and Donghuang Taixian all looked at Lu Xiaoyu with eager eyes. Obviously, they wanted to go with him. How about this? I have a very important task for you. Lu Xiaoyu thought for a moment, then suddenly took out his long saber and handed it to Xiaolong. What's the important task? Xiaolong took it naturally, but he frowned. The others were also puzzled and looked at him with puzzled eyes. In ancient times, when the demon world was sealed into the 18 layers of hell, 18 Tao carriers assisted the great god Pangu to set up a peerless array. Now that the demon race is under control, they can't cause too much trouble. Since that's the case, it's time for those experts to see the light of day again. Looking at Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Nanghua, and Lu Xintong, Lu Xiaoyu said solemnly. Chapter 2954. Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong's expressions turned solemn. Xiaolong had already informed everyone about the 18 Tao carrying realm experts, so everyone present was well aware of the situation. According to Lu Xiaoyu's original plan, they were supposed to rescue the enlightened masters when they first entered the 18 layers of hell. It was only because some variables had appeared in Lu Xiaoyu's body that this matter was delayed. Now that Lu Xiaoyu had returned, it was time for the 18 enlightened masters to reappear in front of the world. I left behind some power in bloodshed that can activate the formations outside the 18 layers of hell. The seal of the 18 layers of hell is already broken. With bloodshed, it won't be difficult for you to completely destroy it. Lu Xiaoyu said, looking at Xiaolong. In the primordial era, the great god Pangu had laid down the seal of the 18 layers of hell. After countless years of erosion, it had lost most of its power. With Jiangqin's return, it had suffered even greater damage. With Xiaolong, Di Batian, Yanghua, and the others' strength, they might not be able to directly destroy it. However, if they could borrow Lu Xiaoyu's bloodshed to activate the powerful formations outside the 18 layers of hell, it wouldn't be difficult to accomplish this. Boss, without bloodshed, are you confident you can deal with the demon ancestor? Xiaolong asked, looking at Lu Xiaoyu worriedly. Bloodshed was his boss's life weapon, so it was closely related to him. With bloodshed, Lu Xiaoyu could unleash his greatest strength. Xiaolong was a little doubtful that he'd handed bloodshed over to them and planned to face the demon ancestor alone. Who was the demon ancestor? He was an existence who'd stirred up the entire ancient demonic war. He was a transcendent realm expert, the strongest person in the world. Although the demon ancestor hadn't recovered to his peak strength, he couldn't be underestimated. Lu Xiaoyu didn't know if he'd be completely confident if he didn't use bloodshed. Xiaoyu, why don't we go with you? After we deal with the demon ancestor, we can rescue the 18 enlightened masters. They've been sealed for countless years. Even if they reappear now, they won't be able to do much to change the situation. It's better to let the 18 seniors continue to be sealed. It's safer for them. Yanghua, who was beside Xiaolong, said to Lu Xiaoyu. What he said made sense. The many experts who had assisted great god Pangu in setting up the 18 layers of hell had probably exhausted their strength. Compared to the 9 great demon generals of the devil clan, their situation might be even worse. Even if the seal was broken, there wouldn't be many who would be able to come out alive. Once those people broke out of the seal, the situation would be even worse if they were to get involved in the battle. Don't worry, just do as I say. I'm not here to fight the fiend ancestor. I just need to disturb him. I'll be back soon. Lu Xiaoyu smiled and said to the experts in front of him. After which, he turned his gaze and looked at another place. That place was the seal where the 9 great demon generals were. Lu Xiaoyu looked at the 9 great demon generals who were attacking ferociously in an attempt to break out of the seal. His voice was cold as he said, the seal that I've set up won't be able to trap those 2 for long. Before they break out, I'll be back. Xiaolong and the others followed Lu Xiaoyu's line of sight and saw that the light barrier around the 9 great demon generals had already started to crack. Although it wasn't obvious, it was only a matter of time before it was broken. In another direction, Du Xiaofu was still wandering around like a wandering soul. He was in the midst of comprehending. He only needed to wait for him to make a further breakthrough before the 9 great demon generals would be put to use. It's settled then. Let's split up. Lu Xiaoyu finally spoke. Without waiting for Xiaolong and the rest to say anything, his body flashed and directly disappeared from the spot. In an instant, he had disappeared from sight. Let's go too. Xiaolong weighed the long saber in his hand and said to Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Nanghua, and Lu Xintong. Then, the 5 of them went straight to the first layer of hell. They were going to start there and rescue the 18 carrying Dao sealed here, layer by layer. Lu Xiaoyu, Xiaolong, and the others left one after another. However, the terrifying killing on the battlefield continued. For the 33 heavens and the 3,000 sectors, they had never experienced such a delightful killing. The strength of the demon race was greatly reduced, and the number of experts in the 2 worlds was almost unchanged. The overall situation was completely one-sided. All the experts were in a killing frenzy. However, in this endless battlefield, there was a strange scene. Everyone could see a purple-robed figure wandering around, as if he had lost his mind, running around aimlessly. One's own Tao needs to be combined with one's own characteristics: Great God Pangu's Tao of all beings, Demon Ancestors' Tao of massacre, Heavenly Lord Daoyuo's Tao of strength, Senior Brother's Tao of hegemony. Great God Pangu's heart was benevolent. He cared about the common people, so he walked on the Tao of all beings. Demon Ancestor liked bloodshed, so he walked on the Tao of massacre. Heavenly Lord Daoyuo was brave and fearless. Although he died, he surrendered, so he walked on the Tao of strength. Senior Brother wanted to dominate the world, so he walked on the Tao of hegemony. Every Tao is related to one's own personality. At the same time, it's also related to the goal one wants to achieve. Du Xiaofu was still muttering to himself. It looked like he was reciting scriptures. Thoughts flashed in his mind as he pondered these questions without stopping. Based on what Senior Brother Lu Xiaoyu had said to him, he began to summarize some of his own characteristics. For many people, they would have many different characteristics at the same time. For example, they were benevolent, upright and plain-spoken, overbearing, and so on. They could all be combined into one. But as for the ultimate goal to achieve, it was the best way to distinguish one's personality, allowing Du Xiaofu to quickly find his own position. For thousands of years, I started from the small Du family in Stone City and cultivated step by step. At the beginning, I wanted to reunite my family and take back my mother and sister from legalism. During this process, I constantly struggled. I walked out of Stone City, barged into the dark forest, established the World Association, and recruited Elder Yi and many other experts. After that, I entered Tianwu Academy to cultivate. Along the way, I made many connections with the Stone Dragon Empire, fought with the Du family, and passed through many calamities. After that, Tianwu Academy suffered a great calamity. Too many of my family and friends died at the hands of the devil religion. Du Xiaofu constantly recalled everything he had done over the years. Those places, those figures, all of them flowed through his mind. The Du family, Stone City, the Dark Forest, the Du family, the Stone Dragon Empire, the Beast Region, the Divine Light Court, the Ancient Heaven Sect, the Great Luan Sect, the 7-Star Hall, and so on. During those years, he had traveled through the 3 continents, the Kyushu realm, and the entire Divine Martial World. He established the World Association and the Desolate Country. He had traveled through every secret place and obtained countless opportunities. Along with all of these, his strength had increased without limit. The stronger one was, the greater one's responsibility. The reason why Du Xiaofu worked so hard was for his family, his loved ones, his friends, the citizens of the desolate country, and the common people of the world. He wanted them to live a more stable and better life. Because of this goal, he eventually walked on the opposite side of the devil religion and became the person that the devil religion wanted to eliminate the most. At the same time, the devil ancestor also became Du Xiaofu's target. He was willing to sacrifice his own life to take the devil ancestor down with him. It could be said that those decades in the divine martial world were the most turbulent years of Du Xiaofu's life. He had experienced many life and death situations, and countless dangers, but in the end, he still managed to survive. Along the way, I continuously grew stronger and stronger, all to protect the people I care about. At the beginning, it was a family reunion. Then, it was to protect the citizens of the Stone Dragon Empire. Then, it was to protect those old friends from Tianwu Academy. Then, when I became the Rock Emperor of the Desolate Country, the countless citizens of the Desolate Country became the people I had to protect. In the face of the great calamity of the devil cult, everyone in the 3 continents and 9 continents placed their hopes on me. Scenes of the past flashed through Du Xiaofu's mind. It was as if it had happened yesterday, so clear and so deep. The stronger he was, the more he had to bear. In the end, all living beings in the divine martial world placed their hopes on their Rock Emperor to defeat the devil ancestor and restore peace to the divine martial world. It was also because of this that Du Xiaofu himself obtained the Dragon Qi of the world, the Emperor Qi of the world, and the magnificent feat of being worshipped by the entire world. It was an amazing feat. From then on, the divine martial world was peaceful, and there were no longer any great battles. All living beings' gazes were finally focused on the 33 heavens. As the strongest person in Shenwu world, Du Xiaofu naturally had to take the first step and explore the path for everyone else. This was to prevent Shenwu world from being stuck in its own place, to prevent it from becoming a slave to the outside world. But very quickly, the existence of the demon race once again entered everyone's sights. Because Du Xiaofu controlled the heavenly Tao of the divine martial world, and because of his relationship with Jiangchen, Du Xiaofu was the first to bear the brunt of the attack. Because of this, most living beings in the 33 heavens didn't have a deep relationship with him. But his family, friends, and loved ones were all over the world, forming the most complicated network of relationships. Because of this, Du Xiaofu had no choice but to take on the mission of stopping the demon race. Now that his senior apprentice brother Lu Xiaoyu and the others had intervened, he couldn't shirk away from this responsibility. So, the Tao I want to walk is actually very simple. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu, who was walking through the void, stopped. His eyes suddenly became 10,000 times brighter, incomparably resplendent, like 2 bright suns. My Tao is the Tao of friendship. Protecting the people I care about is my responsibility, my mission. Even if I have to die a horrible death, I will not allow them to be harmed. Even if the paramount god intervenes, Du Xiaofu will drag him down from his pedestal and cast him into the dark abyss, even if I have to die. When these words came out of Du Xiaofu's mouth, they were soft at the beginning. However, in the end, they turned into rolling thunder that resounded in the sky. It was as if tens of thousands of mountains were collapsing and thousands of waves were roaring. It caused an incomparably intense commotion. Under the shock of these words, the experts on the battlefield were first startled. Then, they all stopped what they were doing and turned to look in the direction of the purple-robed youth. Everyone's eyes were filled with confusion. But then, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Long Ke, Long Su, and many other third-level meditative realm experts simultaneously revealed looks of shock. Martial Uncle Du is. He's comprehended his own Tao and found his own direction. Lu Jingyun and the others were filled with extreme shock and horror. Each one of them seemed to have been struck by lightning as they stood rooted to the ground. The vast voice reverberated in the void, as if it was released from the mouth of the heavens. It was like the sonorous voice of the great Tao, indescribably shocking. Everyone could feel the fierce and strong will in Du Xiaofu's heart at this moment. Even if the paramount god intervened, they would not be able to stop his Tao. Anyone who disobeyed would be cast down from their pedestal and cast into the dark abyss. How domineering and decisive was this? How resolute was this? Suddenly, a strange aura rose from Du Xiaofu's body and spread out into the void. It set off a terrifying storm that howled and danced in the entire level of hell. How long has it been? It hasn't even been 100 years since Martial Uncle Du began to comprehend. We've just entered the 11th level of hell not long ago, and he's already comprehended such a thing. Lu Jingyun exclaimed in shock. His entire body began to tremble slightly. He could feel the power that Du Xiaofu carried. It was incomparably powerful, but also very ethereal and elusive. This strange power was unique to Du Xiaofu. It was different from everyone else's and contained various meanings such as valiance, domineering, resolute, absolute, and so on. The most prominent thing was the terrifying aura that no one could stop. For the sake of his own beliefs, he could look down on everything. Even the heavens and earth could not suppress him. At this moment, Lu Jingyun frowned slightly. He also had a strange feeling. Yes, the so-called Tao carrier was carrying one's own Tao, not the grand Tao of heaven and earth created by others. In other words, Du Xiaofu had completely determined the direction he wanted to go and carried an unparalleled conviction. It was the most terrifying thing. With this step, Martial Uncle Du is probably not far from the half-step Tao carrier realm. Lu Jingyun murmured and said numbly. The half-step Tao carrier realm was to carve out a trace of the Tao. It was still far from the true embryonic form of the grand Tao. But it was undeniable that a good start was an important part of success. The difficult part was the first step. The first thing Du Xiaofu had to do was draw the first stroke. Huff, 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 under everyone's gaze, Du Xiaofu's aura began to climb, becoming more and more powerful. Rays of purple and gold light shot out and wrapped around the purple-robed figure. His figure was swallowed up and disappeared. However, everyone could feel that the power inside was becoming more and more vast and shocking. Rumble, thunderous sounds exploded and erupted in the 11th level of hell. It was earth-shattering. Whether it was the 33 heavens, the 3,000 great thousand worlds, or the many powerhouses of the demon race, they all felt panic in their hearts. It was as if they were facing the heavenly might of the great Tao, and its pressure filled every inch of space. Everyone felt their scalps go numb. Their blood was boiling, as if it was about to explode. Between heaven and earth, waves of mysterious energy seeped out from the red 11th level of hell. It rushed into the purple and gold light and gathered inside Du Xiaofu's body. Brother, boss, father, Du Xiaojing, Du Xiaoyao, and little Xing Xing, who came out from Shenwu world, were in a different state than everyone else. Not only did they not retreat like the other powerhouses, but they also moved towards where Du Xiaofu was. It was completely out of instinct. From Du Xiaofu's body, the three immortal realm warriors could sense a special aura. It was the connection between family members, the power of bloodline inheritance. I think I'm about to break through. Little Xingxing's eyes suddenly blinked twice, and soft words came out from his red lips. Then, the slim figure sat down cross-legged on the ground and floated in the air. Waves of vast energy erupted from her body. It was indescribably shocking. Then, Du Xiaojing and Du Xiaoyao did the same. They entered a state of cultivation. This situation was extremely sudden, causing Lu Jingyun and the others to be slightly puzzled. The Tao that Master Du firmly believes in is closely related to their existence. Martial Uncle Du's new understanding has also affected the three of them imperceptibly, bringing them unimaginable benefits. After a long while, Lu Jingyun slowly opened his mouth and said this. Through his explanation, the surrounding powerhouses finally understood that this was indeed caused by Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaojing, Du Xiaoyao, and little Xing Xing were all related to Du Xiaofu by blood. They had always lived by his side and were greatly influenced by Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu's Tao naturally had an inseparable relationship with the three of them. At this moment, the purple-robed youth had begun to understand his own Tao. Although he had not taken that crucial step, he had already begun to affect his family. Perhaps the truth is even more terrifying than we imagined. Master Du walked out of Shenwu world and grasped the laws of heaven there. He has also formed a deep connection with the entire Shenwu world. Right now, I really want to go to Shenwu world and take a look. I want to see how the living beings there will change under such circumstances. Beside Lu Jingyun, his sister Lu Yuxiao was already shocked to the point of no return, but she could not help but blurt out these words. As she said those words, her pretty face revealed the most horrified expression. Chapter 29:55. When the people around Lu Yuxiao heard this, they all revealed expressions of shock. Her meaning was already very clear. It was to say that Du Xiaofu's comprehension this time not only brought about a great impact on Du Xiaojing, Du Xiaoyao and little Xingxing who were present. Perhaps all the living beings in Shenwu world would receive unimaginable benefits from the situation here. If that was the case, then it would be terrifying. Shenwu world had been weak for many years, until the demon god was killed and the devil religion's calamity ended, only then did it begin to shine. Over the years, it grew extremely fast, and every time Du Xiaofu broke through, the world would become many times stronger. Today, Shenwu world was starting to look like the great Luo Tian of the ancient times. It was extremely terrifying, and much more majestic than any of the 33 heavens. The only thing that couldn't compare to it was the living beings in that world. They hadn't had time to grow, and their overall strength was still relatively weak. But over the years, Shenwu world had started to produce a large number of immortal realm cultivators, and the number was impressive. If this time, because of Du Xiaofu's influence, the strength of that world would increase by another level, then it would become a terrifying force. I don't think it's that bad. Martial Uncle Du hasn't truly broken through yet, so the living beings in Shenwu world probably won't benefit too much. Even if they had to wait, they would have to wait for Martial Uncle Du to truly take that step. But for those closest to him, from this moment onwards, they would already benefit greatly. Lu Jingyun thought for a long time, and finally came up with this conjecture. Hearing this, everyone else also felt that it made sense. If Du Xiaofu's enlightenment was enough to affect the entire Shenwu world, then it would be too monstrous, and hard to imagine. The most likely scenario would be like what Lu Jingyun said, waiting for that guy to truly break through the half-step Dao-raising realm, or even the Dao-raising realm, then he would continue to bring about earth-shattering changes to that world. But one thing couldn't be denied, was that Shenwu world would definitely benefit from Du Xiaofu's enlightenment. Buzz buzz buzz, at that moment, Du Xiaofu was still surrounded by boundless light. Amidst the light, Du Xiaofu closed his eyes slightly. His 6 senses were shut off, and he was not aware of anything outside. Inside his body, waves of powerful qi flowed continuously, shuttling back and forth in his limbs. The qi finally gathered into a huge flood and rushed into his divine watchtower. Then, it turned into a great cycle and entered his Naiwen palace. Qi La, when this frightening energy rushed into his mind, it transformed into a thin mysterious energy. Like gossamer, it accumulated more and more. The origin soul of the Crimson Horse Monkey let out a terrifying roar when facing this threat. It actually trembled as if it was facing something terrifying. Buzz buzz buzz, however, Du Xiaofu continued to gather this energy, accumulating more and more in his Naiwen palace. These strands continued to entangle with each other and turned into the shape of a thin sword. It carried an extremely sharp aura, as if it was the most terrifying thing in this world. It was capable of piercing through everything, carving its mark on the grand Tao of heaven and earth, changing the innate principles that were bestowed upon it, and changing the world. Roar, the moment this thin sword took shape, the origin soul of the Crimson Horse Monkey let out a frightened cry. Its imposing and domineering body trembled violently. This was the instinctive reaction of Du Xiaofu when he felt fear and terror. In order to walk my own path, I must carve my own principles on my origin soul. Du Xiaofu murmured to himself. He felt his voice trembling violently. The might emitted by the thin sword was too terrifying. Just by standing there quietly, it made his origin soul feel danger. It was as if as long as he moved, he would be able to reap his life. Du Xiaofu was very clear in his heart what he had to do. Although he was filled with boundless fear, he still had to carry it out. Buzz, accompanied by a terrifying buzzing sound, the thin sword suddenly changed direction and headed towards the origin soul of the Crimson Horse Monkey. The tip of the sword flashed lightly, causing a terrifying mark to appear on the origin soul's body, as if it was about to be cut apart. If this scene was seen in the past, Du Xiaofu would definitely be shocked to death. One had to know that his origin soul of the Crimson Horse Monkey was extremely powerful, not the slightest bit inferior to his own physical body. However, in front of the tiny bit of light emitted by this thin sword, such a terrifying scene actually appeared, as if it was about to be destroyed in an instant. Ao ao ao, Du Xiaofu's origin soul roared violently, emitting a trembling sound. The power carried by the thin sword, before it even reached his body, it had already pierced through everything. The sword of will and energy, the sword of faith, is naturally the most terrifying existence in this world. With sufficient will and faith, even if the gods and devils block the way, they can still slaughter the gods and devils and brazenly advance forward. Du Xiaofu continuously encouraged himself in his heart. After such a long period of continuous comprehension, he was finally able to gather such a huge amount of will and faith to condense this thin sword. His goal was to draw an extremely important stroke on his origin soul, to carve out a trace of his own Tao. He controlled the thin sword to move, pressing towards the Crimson Horse Monkey's origin soul step by step, causing the origin soul's body to let out a miserable scream, and began to be destroyed in a large area. Du Xiaofu's teeth were chattering, and his entire body was drenched in cold sweat from head to toe. Intense pain invaded every inch of his origin soul. This was a pain that came from the deepest part of his origin soul, and it was inconsolable. It must work. Du Xiaofu secretly made up his mind. He moved the thin sword and approached his own origin soul body. However, what caused him to feel despair was that the Redbone Horse Monkey's origin soul had shrunk to the extreme in front of the thin sword. A large amount of origin soul power collapsed and scattered, causing him to feel weaker and weaker. At the same time, the thin sword was unable to touch the body of the origin soul. The pain was simply unbearable. It must work. It must work. Du Xiaofu gritted his teeth and persevered, moving again and again. However, his origin soul involuntarily began to flee, wanting to escape from that terrifying power. This was the weakness in human nature, and it was also the instinct of everyone to seek luck and avoid calamity. Most importantly, his own strength was becoming weaker and weaker. It wouldn't be long before the entire Crimson Horse Monkey's origin soul was completely wiped out by the thin sword. At that time, Du Xiaofu himself would probably lose his life here, his body in Tao vanishing. Carve for me. But even in the face of death, Du Xiaofu was still unwilling to give up. He still wanted to carve a mark. As long as he could do it, he would have successfully taken the first step. The thin sword let out a faint buzzing sound as it chased after the Redbone Horse Monkey's origin soul. Its speed was incomparably fast. In comparison, the Redbone Horse Monkey's origin soul power was gradually weakening, almost to the point where it could not be maintained. At the same time, under the influence of the thin sword, it was becoming weaker and weaker. As time passed, Du Xiaofu only felt that his strength was about to be exhausted. If this situation continued, he was afraid that before he could successfully carve that mark, his origin soul would collapse into nothingness and he would die an unnatural death. This situation made him feel even more flustered. Don't tell me I have to give up. Du Xiaofu's entire body was already soaked in cold sweat, having an extreme feeling of exhaustion. He had the thought of giving up, not wanting to continue like this. That thin sword formed from unyielding will and firm conviction was simply too terrifying. It made people instinctively want to avoid it. Even Du Xiaofu himself was unable to control his own feelings of fear. Apart from giving up, there seemed to be no better way. If he allowed the thin sword's power to continue attacking his origin soul, he might really die. This is rewriting the Great Tao. The process is definitely filled with danger. But to give up just like this, I'm really unwilling. Du Xiaofu kept thinking in his heart. He found it hard to accept the result of failure. The great Tao of heaven and earth had already been engraved before he came to this world. Every part of his body and soul was a product of the great Tao. Right now, that thin sword was going to change the original great Tao, and in turn, change himself. It was just that this process was simply too painful. Not only did that thin sword have a terrifying pressure, its power was also terrifying. Before it had even touched his origin soul, it had already exhausted the power of his origin soul to the limit. If he continued, what he would have to face was really a road to death. But Du Xiaofu was really unwilling to give up like this. This was an opportunity. It was the first time he had used his most unyielding will and firm conviction to condense a thin sword that could change the traces of the great Tao. If he failed the first time, it would leave an unerasable fear in his heart, planting a seed of fear. When he tried again, it would be much more difficult. If others can do it, I can do it too. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu gritted his teeth again. Blood seeped out from between his lips and teeth. He steeled his heart and began to control the red-bone horse monkey's origin soul. At the same time, he used the thin sword to approach. Accompanied by unimaginable pain, Du Xiaofu's nerves were about to go numb. It was already extremely painful. At the same time, a series of chi-chi sounds could be heard. His origin soul body began to shrink rapidly, wanting to continue escaping. Freeze for me. Du Xiaofu's heart was filled with extreme ruthlessness. He used almost all of his strength to suppress the red-bone horse monkey's origin soul. This greatly reduced the speed of its escape. Chi-chi, the thin sword shot out like an arrow leaving the bow. It wanted to attack the red-bone horse monkey's origin soul and leave a mark. But as the sword light got closer and closer, the origin soul body trembled violently. At the same time, a terrifying annihilation occurred. It was about to completely disperse. Even if I die, I will stab you once with the sword before I die. Du Xiaofu's throat let out a terrifying roar. He shouted loudly. At the same time, the energy in his body surged violently. All of it was channeled into his Naiwan palace. He tightly controlled his origin soul. All of his energy was squeezed out by him. There was not a trace left. Under such circumstances, Du Xiaofu mustered up all of his energy. He wanted to fight with all of his strength. Even if he died, he wanted to die under the thin sword. He wanted to launch the final attack. Chi, the thin sword whistled through the air. The red-bone horse monkey also let out a final miserable cry. The two finally came into contact for the first time. Immediately after, Du Xiaofu's consciousness completely disappeared. He could not feel anything. Outside his body, the violent purplish gold light instantly dispersed. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared, revealing Du Xiaofu's body. The unique charm in the void also retreated like the tide in an instant, and the void became empty. Du Xiaojing, Du Xiaoyao and little Xingxing who were sitting cross-legged spat out a large mouthful of blood at the same time. When they opened their eyes, they did not have any spirit to speak of. In just a moment, the three of them seemed to have suffered the most terrifying impact. All of them were heavily injured. Little Xingxing. Martial Uncle Du. Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Long Ke, Long Su, and the other experts were all stunned. Everything changed too quickly. Du Xiaofu, who was still full of vigor just a moment ago, suddenly lost all of his vitality. He fell from the sky like a kite that lost its leash. Furthermore, the three experts who came from Shenwu world with him were all heavily injured. They did not even have the ability to stay in the air. They drew 3 straight lines and fell from the sky. Lu Jingyun and the other experts were all stunned. Looking at this scene, they were so shocked that they wanted to die. Everyone's hearts were beating fast. They could not imagine the result that they had sensed. Under their probing, Du Xiaofu had indeed lost all of his vitality. There was no fate at all. Such a sign represented a fact. That was, Du Xiaofu had fallen. How? How could this be? How could this be? Lu Jingyun, who had always been calm and collected, started to speak incoherently. He tried his best to widen his eyes. He could not believe what he was seeing. Martial Uncle Du, Yuqin Deity Emperor, the other experts from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 greater worlds were all shocked and felt extreme fear. Du Xiaofu was such an extraordinary talent. How could he have fallen here? This was something that no one could accept. How could he have died? How could he have died? Without him, how could the demon ancestor be killed? Without him, who in this world could have lived through this era? Without him, who could have shown the billions of living beings the path to supremacy? At this moment, many experts felt pain in their hearts. They did not dare to imagine that Du Xiaofu had fallen. The purple-robed young man had always shown them a resolute attitude that would never fall. Just as he'd said, even the heavens, the earth, and that God couldn't stop his footsteps. But now, how could he have fallen? How could he have fallen on the path of enlightenment? Impossible, Martial Uncle Du must still be alive. After a while, Lu Jingyun forcefully put away his shock and fear. Then, he rushed out and caught Du Xiaofu before he hit the ground. Long Ke, Long Su, and the others also came back to their senses. They rushed to little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, and Du Xiaojing's sides to check on their current situation. Du Xiaofu actually died like this? At this moment, at the entrance to the 12th level of hell, two figures were preparing to throw themselves into the boundless flames and continue to escape into the depths of the 18 levels of hell. These two figures were Dongli Qihuang and Qin Yan. They had escaped before all the experts of the demon race. They did not fall into the encirclement of the experts from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 greater worlds. Because of this, not long after everyone entered the 11th level of hell, the two demon attendants were about to enter the 12th level of hell. However, they had been paying attention to the changes in the battlefield, looking forward to whether or not there would be any changes. However, it was clear that their expectations had been wishful thinking for a long time. But now, Du Xiaofu's sudden appearance caused them to be fiercely stunned. TSK 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 TSK. Du Xiaofu is dead. He died at his own hands. After being stunned for a moment, Dongli Qihuang let out a cold laugh that carried an unconcealable joy. A post-celestial actually dared to dream of carving out his own Tao. He simply overestimated himself. This is great. He finally died under his own Tao sword. His body and Tao have disappeared. Qin Yan also spoke. A cold smile hung on the corner of his mouth, and he was indescribably happy. If Du Xiaofu died here, it would be great news for their demon race. Once that brat died, no one in the world would be able to kill Lord Devil Ancestor. Not to mention Lu Xiaoyu, even Pangu and Empyrean Absolute would be helpless against Lord Devil Ancestor's undying body. This day has finally come. The rise of our demon race is unstoppable. Dongli Qihuang was so excited that his entire body trembled. He was so happy that he almost cried. They had been waiting for this day for far too long. Du Xiaofu's existence was like a sharp blade that always hung above the heads of the demon race, constantly reminding them that there was still someone in the world who could pose a fatal threat to Lord Devil Ancestor. Putting aside their experience in Shenwu world in the past, just after coming to the 33 heavens, the two demon attendants had used all their means to kill Du Xiaofu. However, they had failed several times, which was a huge blow to them. That brat was like a monster, always coming back from death's door and escaping their killing intent. But now, they had finally seen the purple-robed young man fall. His vitality had obviously been completely cut off, and there would be no other variables. This time, there won't be any chance for him to come back to life. Suddenly, Chen Yan thought of how Du Xiaofu had died several times in Shenwu world in the past, but in the end, he inexplicably came back to life. He couldn't help but have a strange feeling in his heart. He was a little uncertain. He was afraid that this time, this brat would come back from the dead again, right? Thinking of this, Chen Yan's expression became solemn, and some uncertainty appeared in his eyes. When Dongli Chi Huang heard this, the corners of his mouth curled up, and he inexplicably felt that he suddenly couldn't smile. Chapter 2956. What Chen Yan said wasn't without basis. When Du Xiaofu died for the first time in the early years, it was for the sake of the stone dragon, and he'd already been buried in the earth. But a few years later, he'd actually miraculously come back to life. And in the final battle with the demon god, he was only left with a head, his primordial spirit was destroyed, and there was no life left. But in the end, that brat still came back to life, and in one fell swoop, he controlled the heavenly laws of Shenwu world. These were the two times that left the deepest impression. Other than that, there were a few other times of life and death, but they were all solved by that purple-robed youth. In other words, Du Xiaofu had already experienced death many times, and each time, his enemies felt incomparably happy. But at the last moment, that joy was shattered again. Following that, Du Xiaofu's cultivation broke through again and again, his strength skyrocketing. At this time, Dongli Chi Huang and Chen Yan both felt a little flustered. They looked at each other tacitly, and saw the shock in each other's eyes. You also think that Du Xiaofu brat won't die so easily? Chen Yan coughed lightly, feeling that his throat was a little dry. He looked at Dongli Chi Huang beside him, and asked in disbelief. Dongli Chi Huang did not say anything, and only nervously licked his lips, and nodded heavily. In view of the fact that Du Xiaofu had refreshed the world's understanding over and over again over the years, at this time, the two demon attendants felt that the purple-robed youth might really not die like this. Regarding this, they were even more moved than the extremely nervous Lu Jingyun, Lu Yushao, Long Ke, Long Su, and the others. They were even more unwilling to believe that Du Xiaofu would die like this. I really hope he won't wake up again. Chen Yan unconsciously clenched his fists, and looked around, no longer in a hurry to escape to the 12th level of hell. He cast his gaze towards Du Xiaofu's direction, and quietly stood there, wanting to see Du Xiaofu's final outcome. Du Xiaofu, Dongli Chi Huang's expression was exactly the same as Chen Yan's, both of them clenching their fists tightly. In the hearts of the two demon attendants, they hoped that Du Xiaofu would not die. But right now, their hearts were filled with uncertainty. Their intuition told them that the purple-robed youth might suddenly wake up again, and he might become even stronger. However, the two demon attendants were extremely unwilling. They only wanted to see the final result before they could leave. Their greatest hope was that their intuition was wrong and that Du Xiaofu was really dead and would never appear in front of them again. Uncle Master Martial Uncle Du, in the distance, Du Xiaofu, Lu Jingyun's Lu, Lu Jingyun. Many of Heaven Star Lu, of Devil, of the of Nings. There's Yan's, too, there. After a few rounds of examination, they discovered that Du Xiaofu's body really did not have the slightest trace of life remaining. This was a sign that he was completely dead. On the other side, Long Ke, Long Su, and the others had examined Du Xiaojing, Du Xiaoyao, and Little Xingxing. Fortunately, although they were heavily injured, they still showed signs of life. It was only a matter of time before they returned to peak condition. A genius actually died just like that, some of the older generation experts from the 33 heavens spoke up, looking at Du Xiaofu with endless pain and regret. Everyone had already confirmed that Du Xiaofu had really perished. His soul core had been obliterated into nothingness, and only an empty body that was still intact remained. It was the power of the Tao that destroyed Martial Uncle Du's soul. This is the greatest hurdle of the realm of carrying Tao, Du Jingyun murmured. He knew a lot about the realm of carrying Tao, so he naturally knew why Du Xiaofu's soul had been destroyed into nothingness. Condensing one's faith and will into a sword was one's own Tao sword. The Tao sword was ferocious, different from the original principles of Yin and Yang, different from the Tao of God Pangu, the demon ancestor, and the others. Living beings formed from the 4 original Tao swords would naturally feel a terrifying fear towards the Tao sword. It was a process that was extremely difficult to overcome. Under Lu Jingyun's perception, he was able to discover that there was still a tiny speck of light in Du Xiaofu's mind. It was tens of thousands of times smaller than a grain of rice, but it was this tiny speck of light that emitted an extremely terrifying aura. Lu Jingyun knew that it was probably a remnant of the Tao sword. It was originally used to carve Tao marks into the soul, but it had become a life-threatening object. The Tao is difficult to go against. Wanting to walk out one's own Tao is easier said than done. Lu Jingyun let out a long sigh and gradually began to accept this result. The Tao was innate, and everything that living beings had was bestowed by the Tao. If one rashly tampered with it, they would naturally suffer a backlash. Since it's a failure, then what's the point of leaving this Tao sword behind? It's better for it to be destroyed along with martial Uncle Du. Lu Jingyun's eyes dimmed as he sighed. He released his own power and entered Du Xiaofu's mind, enveloping that tiny speck of light. That was Du Xiaofu's Tao sword. It could only pose a threat to Du Xiaofu, but it was completely useless in front of Lu Jingyun. Since Du Xiaofu was already dead, there was no point for this Tao sword to continue existing. Lu Jingyun wanted to erase it and make Du Xiaofu truly fall silent. However, before Lu Jingyun's power could even touch that speck of light, his soul power suddenly felt a surging wave of energy. It was like a raging tide that swept everything away. In just an instant, his power was brazenly repelled and expelled from Du Xiaofu's mind. In the final moment before it left Du Xiaofu's mud pill palace, he caught a glimpse of the speck of light that was even smaller than a grain of rice exploding with a mighty aura. Boom! As Lu Jingyun's power retreated, a domineering pressure suddenly descended from the void, once again pressing down on the heads of all the surrounding creatures, causing their souls to tremble. On the other hand, Du Xiaofu's body gradually released a mysterious light that completely covered his body. No one dared to stay any longer. They all retreated in an instant, distancing themselves from the purple-robed youth. Even Lu Jingyun did the same. They sensed a terrifying aura. The purple-robed youth's power was extremely strange and terrifying. The Yuqing Divine Emperor is, after everyone retreated, many of the 33 Heavens experts were even more puzzled. The purple-robed youth's movements were too extraordinary. It caught everyone off guard, just like when he suddenly lost all signs of life. It was extremely sudden. Is he about to wake up? An expert murmured and said. They could feel that the power in Du Xiaofu's body was extremely terrifying. It was extremely vigorous and was more powerful than any of the experts present. Soon after, a strong vitality drifted out from his body. Such a scene instantly stunned everyone. Buzz. Then, everyone saw that on the other side, Du Xiaojing, Little Xingxing, and Du Xiaoyao's bodies were once again stimulated with boundless power. The 3 of them entered into a state of cultivation at the same time. Under the cover of boundless power, their bodies and primordial spirits were continuously nourished. Master's Uncle Du is not dead. He is not dead. The Yuqing Divine Emperor is alive again. He is alive. What a miracle. He was clearly devoid of life, but he suddenly woke up. From the looks of it, he seems to have succeeded in breaking through. Congratulations, congratulations. Around them, countless experts from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds were in an uproar. Many of them shouted excitedly, their bodies trembling with excitement. Du Xiaofu had come back from the dead in such a short period of time. It was difficult not to be excited. Everyone's emotions rose and fell rapidly with him. They were indescribably happy. At this point, their hearts were filled with excitement and joy. If Du Xiaofu had a breakthrough, the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds would be most happy to see it. As for the people of the demon race, they would feel even more depressed. Let's wait and see. I'm afraid it won't be long before Master's Uncle Du takes that crucial step. Lu Jingyun said in a deep voice. His eyes were filled with anticipation. If Du Xiaofu could take that step, it would be a great reference for him. It would provide him with a lot of help in breaking through that level in the future. With this thought in mind, Lu Jingyun stared unblinkingly at Du Xiaofu. He even used the power of his primordial spirit to spy on some movements. He wanted to catch something. In the following time, no one spoke. They were all paying attention to Du Xiaofu's next changes. Where the purple-robed young man was, waves of violent and fierce qi floated out. This power was incomparably powerful and quickly spread to all the 18 layers of hell. The experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds in the 11th layer of hell, as well as the many experts of the demon race, felt it especially strong. A terrifying pressure enveloped down, suppressing the heads of all living beings, making them feel uneasy. It was even more terrifying than facing the supreme heavenly might. Lu Jingyun and the others knew that this was because of Du Xiaofu's Tao. He had really taken the first step. I really succeeded. Wrapped in endless light, the purple-robed young man slowly opened his eyes, revealing a look of endless surprise. He muttered to himself, almost jumping up to celebrate. At this time, an indescribable feeling arose in Du Xiaofu's heart. He only felt that he was extremely lucky. Previously, when he had made his final gamble, his remaining primordial spirit had almost been completely destroyed by the thin sword. It was also because of this that his entire body had lost its vitality, as if he had died. Even his consciousness and perception had been completely lost. Now that Du Xiaofu had woken up, he knew that it was just an illusion. He had succeeded. Even if only a trace of his primordial spirit was left, it still survived. The small light spot that Lu Jingyun saw in his mind was not the path sword, condensed by Du Xiaofu, but a small dot engraved on his primordial spirit. Yes, his primordial spirit was only left with a small dot, and the mark left by the thin sword was only that big. It completely covered the former, and even Lu Jingyun could not detect it. No matter how small the mark is, it is still a Tao that I have walked on my own. It is engraved on my primordial spirit. The corners of Du Xiaofu's mouth curled up, and a smile hung on his face. Even if it was just a mark that was thousands of times smaller than a grain of rice, it was still a Tao mark, and it represented that he had successfully taken the first step. What he needed to do next was to restore the power of his primordial spirit, and then engrave more marks step by step until he reached perfection. At that time, he would truly be in the Tao carrier realm. Begin to restore my strength. Du Xiaofu did not think too much about it, and began to control the power in his body to circulate rapidly. Waves of vast power were mobilized by him, flowing through his limbs and bones, and finally hiding. In his mind's Niwen palace, the primordial spirit that was much smaller than a grain of rice was also rapidly growing. As time passed, it gradually became the size of a bean, then the size of a longan, then the size of a fist, and constantly changing. The form of the red-bone horse monkey appeared once again, and on the forehead of the red-bone horse monkey, there was a small dot of light. That was the mark of Du Xiaofu's Tao. Rumble, in the outside world, the terrifying power turned into a world-destroying storm, rolling and gathering madly with Du Xiaofu as the center. Under the cover of this tide of energy, many powerhouses felt as if Mount Tai was pressing down on them, and it was difficult for them to breathe. Soon, the other layers of the 11th and 18th layers of hell also showed a mysterious scene. The boundless power of Yin and Yang was vast and mighty, rolling layer by layer, like a huge wave, releasing a terrifying power, gradually forming a Yin and Yang Tai Chi diagram between heaven and earth. This Tai Chi diagram rotated like a divine wheel, as if it could destroy everything in the world, making one's scalp tingle. It was incomparably terrifying. And as time continued to pass, the yin and yang of the Tai Chi diagram began to fuse, causing the yin and yang dividing line to become somewhat blurry and not as clear as before. Under such circumstances, not only did the pressure in the void not weaken, it became even more blazing, and the terrifying power was extremely vast, causing people to be even more frightened to death. This is the power of the Tao, a powerhouse of the 33 heavens said with endless amazement. For some of the old monsters of the Oblivion realm who had lived for many years, they had been trapped in the third level for many years without being able to form their own Tao. The power of the Tao that the heavens and earth had placed on them was very difficult to change. But today, the Yuqing Divine Emperor had done it, and this shocked everyone. For countless years in the 33 heavens, apart from the Xiantian realm of Tao from the ancient times, no one has been able to reach this level. I hope that the Yuqing Divine Emperor's breakthrough will lead to more people having the confidence to reach the Tao carrier realm. There were also people who murmured with anticipation. After the collapse of the 33 heavens in the ancient war, it had greatly limited the upper limit of cultivation, and no one had been able to reach the Tao carrier realm. Of course, that realm was also incomparably ethereal and difficult to estimate, and it was not something that could be reached easily. The power of the Tao, this is a brand new power of the Tao. Under everyone's gazes, the Taiji yin-yang diagram in the sky was incomparably terrifying, especially the blurry yin-yang dividing line in the middle. It was like the thickest thing, and it carried the most terrifying thing. Many powerhouses knew that once Du Xiaofu carved out a complete trace of the Tao, the dividing line would completely fade away, and the separated yin and yang forces would finally merge into one. At that time, Du Xiaofu would be at the peak of the Tao carrier realm, and he would be as powerful as Lu Xiaoyu now. Rumble, the terrifying commotion continued, and the yin-yang diagram was like a dark cloud that hung over everyone's heads, releasing a pressure that made it difficult for them to breathe. But in the end, everything flowed into Du Xiaofu's body like flowing water. When the purple-robed figure appeared in front of everyone again, what surged out was an irresistible pressure. Endless light was emitted from Du Xiaofu's body, making him look like a high and mighty god, extraordinary and independent from the mortal world, overlooking all things. Along with Du Xiaofu's transformation, not far from him, Du Xiaoyao, Du Xiaojing, and little Xingxing also experienced earth-shaking changes. Their realms had reached the peak of ninth sky of Immortal Realm, which was extremely terrifying. Previously, these three were just high-level Immortal Realm experts, and little Xingxing was the strongest among them, but he only had the cultivation base of 8th sky of Immortal Realm. Such a terrifying advancement was hard to believe. Needless to say, during the process of Du Xiaofu's advancement, Du Xiaoyao, little Xingxing, and Du Xiaojing had obtained unimaginable benefits. As creatures from the divine martial world, the three of them had a deep bloodline connection with Du Xiaofu. Of course, they had benefited greatly. If it's like this, all creatures in the divine martial world will benefit greatly. At this moment, a forgotten realm expert from the 3,000 great worlds spoke up. It was Lu Youxiao's speculation, but Lu Jingyun denied it because Du Xiaofu hadn't broken through yet, so he hadn't carved his own great Tao. But now, it was different. The purple-cloaked young man had done it so quickly. Of course, the entire divine martial world would benefit greatly. At this moment, the space of that world had started to expand, and the spiritual energy there would be thicker. They're all awake. Let's go and see. When all the terrifying scenes faded away, Long Fault couldn't wait to rush out. He wanted to check on Du Xiaofu, little Xingxing, and the others. The other experts also nodded and rushed out one after another, flying into the distance. Du Xiaofu retracted his aura when he saw the countless experts heading in his direction. A smile hung on his lips as he looked at them. But suddenly, a terrifying and miserable roar resounded through the sky, and it sounded out from boundless distance, causing the expressions of everyone to tighten abruptly. That roar was so terrifying that it subdued the primordial spirits of many creatures, making them fall from the sky. Chapter 2957. That kid, Du Xiaofu, has really come back to life. Far away from Du Xiaofu and the others, Dongli Qihuang and Qin Yan stood side by side at the entrance to the 12th level of hell, and they watched the situation in the distance. When the violet-robed young man suddenly surged with a ferocious aura, the two devil attendants had already sensed that something was off. In next to no time, they saw that Du Xiaofu had really awakened once more, and he emanated an extremely terrifying imposing aura. Obviously, that kid, Du Xiaofu, had come back to life. Moreover, he'd successfully taken that leap forward and carved a Tao that belonged to him. Such an outcome caused the hearts of Dongli Qihuang and Qin Yan to feel boundless heaviness, and they were filled with hatred, yet they were helpless against it. I hope my lord recovers as soon as possible and restrains Du Xiaofu so as to prevent him from being a threat to the grand plans of my devil race. Dongli Qihuang spoke in a cold voice. The current situation was something they weren't willing to see happen the most. After Du Xiaofu broke through this level, he'd taken a step into the half-step Tao enlightened realm, and he was already capable of surpassing all the experts of the devil race besides the Lord Devil Ancestor. If he was allowed to take another step forward, then even the Lord Devil Ancestor would be extremely threatened at that time. Now it would seem like only the Lord himself would be able to completely suppress Du Xiaofu and prevent that kid from continuing to grow. Let's go quickly. After looking at it for a short moment, Qin Yan spoke in a straightforward manner. Du Xiaofu's strength had improved greatly, and it had far surpassed the two devil attendants. If they continued to stay here and were noticed and pursued by Du Xiaofu, then Dongli Qihuang and Qin Yan would probably be driven into a corner. The two devil attendants didn't dare hesitate, and they flashed out with the intention of entering the terrifying hellfire and entering the 12th level of hell. Moreover, they intended to continue deeper until they arrived at the 18th level of hell where the devil ancestor resided. But all of a sudden, a terrifying roar descended, as if it came from the ancient times. It contained endless fury and ferocity, as well as an intense sense of misery. When Dongli Qihuang and Qin Yan heard such a voice, they couldn't help but be stunned at the same time. They glanced at each other and saw extreme astonishment in each other's eyes. "Milord!" The two demon attendants blurted out at the same time. With their power, it was not difficult to tell where the howling came from. It came from the 18th level of hell, from their Lord Demon Ancestor. Oh no, it must be Lu Xiaoyu. Dongli Qihuang's face was so gloomy that it looked like water was about to drip out. His whole person was instantly filled with endless killing intent. "Damned Lu Xiaoyu, how dare you attack my lord?" Qin Yan gnashed his teeth hatefully and really wanted to tear Lu Xiaoyu into pieces. However, he didn't possess that sort of strength. From the terrifying roar just now, it wasn't difficult for him to imagine what my lord was going through. Currently, the demon ancestor was at a critical juncture in his recovery. He couldn't be disturbed in the slightest. Presumably, Lu Xiaoyu also knew this and had actually snuck into the 18th level of hell to attack my lord. This would bring about a serious consequence. If my lord wanted to recover, it would be even more difficult and take a much longer time. "Let's go." The Eastern Flame Scarlet Phoenix did not say anything else. She waved her arm and rushed into the hellfire beside her. She followed the broken seal and headed towards the 12th level of hell. Qin Yan didn't waste any time and traveled with Dongli Qihuang. They only wanted to enter the 18th level of hell to take a look. If Milord was severely injured, it would be the worst thing for the demons to face. It seems that senior brother has attacked Jiangchen. In the distance, Du Xiaofu's expression changed. He'd also realized this. He knew what senior brother Lu Xiaoyu was trying to do. Lu Xiaoyu's goal was to buy him more time. Fortunately, he'd already made a breakthrough, so his heart relaxed a little. However, Du Xiaofu still didn't dare slack off. If he wanted to truly kill the demon ancestor, he was still far from it. "Marshal Uncle Du." Soon, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Long Ke, Long Su, and the other experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds all gathered around Du Xiaofu. After a simple conversation, Du Xiaofu said, "Let's continue to hunt down the demons." He glanced at the space around him. At this time, many demon experts had already fled into the distance. Almost all of them were rushing towards the entrance to the 12th level of hell. Du Xiaofu had caught sight of Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yan, but he wasn't in a hurry to deal with them. In addition, the 9 great demon generals were still trapped in the seal that senior brother Lu Xiaoyu had placed. It was difficult for them to escape. However, many cracks had already appeared on the seal. It wouldn't be long before it completely shattered. Continue to kill. We can't let these demons go so easily. After the commotion caused by Du Xiaofu's breakthrough, a terrifying battle brewed once more. It was about to erupt. The demons panicked and fled with all their might. However, the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds combined could completely crush them in terms of numbers and strength. Kill. An expert of the 3,000 boundless worlds waved the long blade in his hand and shouted. He instantly pounced out and chased after the demons. However, just as he was about to do so, another huge explosion suddenly rang out. The entire world seemed to have been smashed by a huge object. It shook violently and didn't stop for a long time. Everyone felt as if the entire 18th level of hell was tightly grasped by an invisible hand and violently shook. It was as if a huge city wall was trembling and gravel was rolling down. It's Uncle Yanghua, Uncle Xiaolong, and Aunt Xintong. Lu Jingyun quickly understood that this must have been caused by Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Nanghua, and Lu Xintong. Before they left, they had given some instructions to Lu Jingyun and the others. The first level of hell has been broken. The seal has been completely destroyed. I wonder if the carrier of Dao Realm expert who was the foundation of the array has been rescued alive. The other experts also thought of this problem and couldn't help but think in their hearts. Xiaolong and the others left with Lu Xiaoyu's long blade in order to rescue the 18 carrier of Dao Realm experts who had helped Pangu set up the 18 levels of hell in ancient times. Those experts were the foundation of the array. If they wanted to see the light of day again, they had to break all the seals. Now, the demon race was no longer a concern. Only the demon ancestor, the 9 great demon generals, and a few other experts still posed a threat to the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. However, the 18 levels of hell could no longer trap them. The only thing that worried many of the experts present was that they didn't know how many of the 18 carrier of Dao Realm experts would be able to appear in front of the world again. They had experienced a terrifying battle in ancient times and exhausted their cultivation to set up the array. After countless years, it would be extremely rare for them to be able to awaken in the present world. Senior brother and brother Xiaolong have already made their move. We should also continue to push forward. Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered as he muttered to himself. Then, his figure instantly pounced on the demons. Kill. Under Du Xiaofu's lead, the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds moved instantly and launched a fierce attack. This time, it's my turn to trample on you. Du Xiaofu's eyes narrowed as he thought to himself. He quickly caught up with a demon at the first stage of the meditative realm and punched out fiercely. It was as if a ferocious dragon had come out of its nest. It was brazen and peerless. As his punch landed, the body of the meditative realm expert of the Devil clan exploded into a cloud of blood mist that lingered in the void. In the blink of an eye, an expert died just like that. He didn't even have the slightest strength to struggle. 1. Du Xiaofu withdrew his fist. Then, he shifted his gaze and looked in another direction. His eyes were like lightning, as bright as the sun and as bright as thunder. Previously, the demon race had taken advantage of the many demon generals and wanted to crush the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. Fortunately, the dragon god and Lu Xiaoyu appeared in time. Otherwise, the situation would have become uncontrollable. Now that everything had been reversed, the 9 great demon generals were sealed and the demon race had lost their top combat strength. Du Xiaofu naturally wanted to get back at them. 2. In the next moment, his purple robe fluttered and his figure rose into the air. He appeared next to another meditative realm expert of the Devil Clan and punched out again. Bang, accompanied by a dull sound and a scream, the demon was blasted into pieces again. He couldn't be more dead. Du Xiaofu's aura surged. He felt that he had an inexhaustible power at this time. After taking that breakthrough and engraving a little bit of his own Tao, he felt as if his entire being had been sublimated. A little bit of Tao was a qualitative change from nothing to something. It was earth-shattering and could not be mentioned in the same breath. In his eyes, these cultivators in the meditative forgetting state were no match for him. Du Xiaofu felt that even if he were to face 2 demon generals at the same time, he would still be in an invincible position. However, he did not make a move against the 9 great demon generals. He wanted to wait for senior brother Lu Xiaoyu or Xiaolong to return. Under the protection of those powerhouses, he would dare to fight the 9 great demon generals. Otherwise, Du Xiaofu was not strong enough to face 9 people at the same time. Besides, if the 9 great demon generals rushed into the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds, it would be another massacre. Du Xiaofu naturally did not want such a situation to happen. Kill! Du Xiaofu shouted softly. His feet stepped on the great Tao as if he was stepping on the lines of the great Tao. His entire person carried an indescribable transcendent charm. His robes fluttered in the wind as he punched out again, blasting another devil powerhouse into pieces. The third one. At the same time, such words came out of Du Xiaofu's mouth. For the time being, he did not attack the demons below the meditative realm. He specifically targeted the nearby meditative realm experts to attack. Every time he attacked, he killed them easily. Run, run, run! Countless demons seemed to have gone mad as they fled for their lives. In their eyes, Du Xiaofu was like a peerless demon god. He was even more terrifying than them. This guy had the strength to shake the heavens and earth. No one could stop him. In front of him, the meditative realm experts were like little chicks waiting to be slaughtered. They could only be said to be unable to withstand a single blow. He could easily stomp them to death like bugs. Do you think you can escape? Many powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds began to howl in excitement. They quickly chased after the demons. Every time they intercepted a demon, several people would swarm them and kill them in a few short moves. Du Xiaofu rushed at the front of the crowd, leading all the powerhouses through the 11th layer of hell and into the 12th layer of hell. Nearby, at least 20 meditative realm demons had died at his hands. And all of this happened in a short period of time. Such a ferocious action caused many powerhouses to be shocked. To the demons, it was like they were facing an abyss of fear. There were only a few meditative realm powerhouses in total. In such a short period of time, so many had died. In addition to the ones that had died at the hands of Lu Jingyun and the others, they had lost almost half of their numbers. The losses were huge. After that, Du Xiaofu no longer continued to chase after the meditative realm powerhouses. Any undying demons that were close to him were all killed by him. Du Xiaofu, I will tear you to pieces. Of the 9 demon generals who were sealed, the desolate fiend demon general roared furiously, his voice filled with uncontrollable anger. Seeing the demons die one by one at the hands of the purple-robed youth, he could no longer bear it. He only wanted to rush out of the light barrier and kill that brat with his axe. Those that had died were all elites of the demon race. Every loss was heart-wrenching. If it was because of Lu Xiaofu, desolate demon general wouldn't be so furious. But the one who had done it was Du Xiaofu. That brat was like an ant just a moment ago, like a shrimp that could be easily crushed to death. But in such a short period of time, he had broken through to such a terrifying level. He, if you want to fight the Yuqing godly emperor, break through the seal first if you have the ability. You can't even take care of yourself now, and you still care about others. Isn't it just the 9 demon generals? Don't forget that you are all little pigs being raised. The day you come out of the cage is the day you die. You sure like to shout. When you come out, you will cry. The powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds began to ridicule them. They looked at the 9 great demon generals with disdain. In their minds, Du Xiaofu was no longer afraid of any of the demon generals. What was the use of desolate demon general shouting now? If he had the ability, he could still be so arrogant when he came out. Who cares about them? Continue to kill. One of the experts said. Then, everyone from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds stopped paying attention to the 9 demon generals who were like trapped beasts. They continued to hunt ferociously. One demon after another died at their hands, causing the number of demons to decrease sharply. As they continued to push forward, the crowd could hear a loud roar every once in a while, accompanied by a powerful tremor. They knew that it was the dragon god, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, Donghua, and Lu Xintong who were saving the 18 enlightened beings. Every time they heard a tremor, it meant that a layer of the seal had been completely broken and the ancient existence had escaped. I wonder how many of the 18 enlightened beings will be left in the end. Du Xiaofu thought in his heart, feeling extremely emotional. The batch of Dao carriers who were born at the beginning of the ancient era were the luckiest people in the world. They were blessed with unique cultivation conditions, and by observing the evolution of the grand Daos of heaven and earth, they quickly grasped the complete power of the laws and gathered the complete power of the grand Daos. In the end, many of them successfully engraved their own Dao on their own primordial spirits. But at the same time, they were also the most heroic generation. Because of the demon slaughter, everyone had to throw themselves into the terrifying slaughter. They used their lives in exchange for the continuation of Pangu realm and the survival of many weak creatures. Every time he thought of this, Du Xiaofu felt a deep reverence for those ancient experts. They were the heroes of the ancient era. Without their sacrifice, the 33 heavens would not exist today, and divine battle world would not have been preserved. Based on this train of thought, the existence who created the 3,000 boundless worlds would have fallen at the hands of the demon ancestor. The ancient era of life is long gone, but the demon race still exists. The ancient experts sacrificed themselves in exchange for the world's peace. This is Pangu's Tao of all beings, which affected everyone. Du Xiaofu sighed slightly, and then a special aura rose from his body. He thought to himself, in this era, even if there is no Pangu, no heavenly Lord Daluo, and no enlightened beings, there is still us. The heavy responsibility of exterminating the demon race will be inherited by us, and we will not rest until we die. As he thought about it, he didn't stop the slaughter in his hands. Under Du Xiaofu's lead, the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds rushed into the depths of the 18 layers of hell with irresistible force. By the time they reached the 14th layer of hell, the demon army was almost completely wiped out. Millions of demons below the meditative realm had been killed. Some of the survivors had fled to various corners, and could no longer pose a threat. As for the hundreds of demon clan S from the Oblivion realm, they were all either dead or injured. Under Du Xiaofu's deliberate pursuit, almost no one could survive. Of course, Du Xiaofu wouldn't forget the existence of 2 people, Dongli Qihuang and Xin Yan. Long ago, the 2 demon generals had fled as soon as they realized the situation was unfavorable. By now, they'd probably been one step ahead of them and had ventured even deeper. Those 2 will die sooner or later, but first, we have to deal with the 9 demon generals. Du Xiaofu thought to himself, his cold aura spreading out in all directions. He would not allow the 9 demon generals to live and face Jiangchen. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.